Good afternoon. Today is March 10th, 2026, and this is the City of Prescott City Council voting meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rusing.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fruworth.
Here.
Councilwoman Frederickson.
Here.
Councilman Gambogi.
I am here.
Councilman Gehring.
Here.
Councilman Grady.
Here.
And Councilman Ruby.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. Do we have any introductions, Councilwoman Fruworth?
Well, I have some meeting announcements.
Great.
All right. Let's start off with the Prescott Public Library has several upcoming programs for residents of all ages. On March 11th, the library will host Stories in the Stars, a free mobile planetarium experience presented with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. The event will take place from 2 to 8 p.m. and registration is required. Visit prescottlibrary.info and click on the Calendar and Events tab for more information and to register. The library is also continuing its Open House Forum series, giving residents the opportunity to share feedback and learn more about library programs and services. Upcoming forums will take place on March 11th from 1 to 3, March 25th from 2:30 to 4:15, and March 28th from 1:30 to 3:30 at the Prescott Public Library. And additionally, on the 12th from 5 to 8, the library will host a CPR and AED training class with the Prescott Fire Department for participants ages 12 and older. Pre-registration is also required. For more info and questions and to register, call Prescott Fire at 928-777-1700. A reminder that the city's household annual hazardous waste collect is underway and runs through the end of March. This is a curbside pickup program available to residential trash customers and requires advance registration. I know my husband is excited to get rid of his old paint, so that is going out tomorrow. So residents can find out more, register, and get the right materials into the box by going to PrescottRecycles.com. Before I wrap up today's announcements, I wanted to provide a few updates looking ahead into early April. With spring break approaching and no city council meetings scheduled for March 24th, we won't have our usual opportunity to share what's coming up in April. So here's a few things happening in early April. Our next city council study and voting meeting will happen on Tuesday, April 14th. On Tuesday, April 4th, the Farmers Market will happen. Councilman Gambogi and Recreation Services Director Diaz-Trahan will be at the booth from 7:30 to 12. Stop by with questions and comments. On April 4th, families are invited to join the city at Pioneer Park for the Easter Excellent Egg Venture and Pancake Breakfast, featuring a special appearance by the Easter Bunny. Bring the kids to this free event. Come enjoy a fun morning. Includes an egg hunt, games, and prizes. The event is open to the public. No registration is required. Festivities begin at 9 a.m. If you have any other questions, call Rec Services at 928-777-1121. And finally, the Recreation Services Department is inviting residents to participate in a community survey as part of the development of their 10-year Parks and Recreations Master Plan called Connecting People, Parks, and Possibilities. In the coming days, random selection of Prescott households will receive a mailed survey designed to ensure community feedback accurately represents the broad population. But residents who do not receive a mailed survey by March 15th are encouraged to participate by completing the online survey. Community input will help guide the future direction. You can take the Recreation Services Master Plan at participateprescott.com. Or today, if you're looking for something to do to amuse yourself while you're sitting here with us, you can go to the table in the back, and there is a card with a QR code on it. Take your phone, hit the QR code, and keep yourself busy while you're sitting here. And that's it.
Well, thank you, Lois. That was very exciting to hear what's going on in the city of Prescott, especially the Egg Special event. Excellent event. We will now have invocation by Pastor Mark McDonald with St. Luke's Episcopal Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Gehring.
May we each turn our hearts to that which is beyond ourselves as we join in prayer. Creator God, you make all things new in heaven and on earth. We come to you in this season with new desires and old fears, new decisions and old controversies, new dreams and old weaknesses. Because you are a God of hope, we know that you create all possibilities of the future. This afternoon, we pray for the city of Prescott, the mayor, the city manager, and the members of this council. We pray that we will each be sensitive to the basic needs of all people: food, shelter, and work. We pray that the diverse people living here may join their efforts to seek the good of all. Grant our officials discernment and guidance that through their discussions and decisions, they may achieve solutions to the challenges that face us. Bless our city with prosperity and the wisdom to use it justly. I pray these things in the name of the one who showed us how to live wisely, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Ready, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is a presentation, an introduction, and project update on the Wishman Monument project.
Those that haven't seen it yet. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to provide an update on the progress of the Wishman Monument, which will honor Frank Shankwitz, the creator of Make-A-Wish Foundation and a truly remarkable humanitarian from our community. Most people know Frank as one of the founders of Make-A-Wish, an organization that began right here, actually in Arizona. But Frank's legacy goes far beyond that single moment. For decades, Frank dedicated his life to helping others, and as an Arizona Highway Patrol officer, and throughout his life afterward, he had been deeply committed to community service, helping families, and supporting charities and inspiring people everywhere with the simple message that compassion and kindness can truly change lives. Frank had always remained connected to the community here in Prescott, and the Wishman Monument is meant to recognize Frank's lifelong commitment as a local humanitarian who has spent his life serving others. We are grateful that the city has approved the site for the monument, and I want to thank the council and the city staff for helping to make this project possible. I'm pleased to report that we have actually reached an important milestone, and through the community support and fundraising efforts, we have actually raised enough funding to begin the creation of the bronze bust of Frank, which will serve as the centerpiece for the monument. We are also honored that the sculpture will be created by Frank's longtime friend and renowned local artist, Bill Neviker, whose work is widely respected throughout Arizona and beyond. Bill's talent and experience will help ensure that this monument is not only a tribute to Frank, to his legacy, but also a meaningful piece of public art for our community. Our fundraising efforts will continue as we move forward with the next phases of the project, including the monument base, which will be actually a boulder being generously donated by Tommy Devereaux, the bronzing of the sculpture of Frank being completed by local foundry Bronzesmith, who will also be doing the plaques containing the scripted verbiage, and the installation of the monument being facilitated with the help of local contractor Chuck Merritt. The support we have actually received from the community has been incredibly encouraging, and it speaks to how much Frank's work has meant to so many people, including us. When completed, the Wishman Monument will stand as a lasting tribute not only to the visionary of Make-A-Wish, but to a special human being who dedicated himself to a lifetime of compassion, generosity, and service to others. And perhaps most importantly, it will remind everyone who visits the monument that this extraordinary story of kindness and hope began with a local man who simply chose to help a child. And to quote a phrase that someone wrote, one boy's wish changed a man. One man's wish changed the world. And that man was Frank Shankwitz. So thank you all for your support with this great thing we're doing and tribute to Frank. So thank you guys. And I'd like to introduce one more time Kitty, who is Frank's widow, is here with us today.
And next we'll have Councilman Gehring presenting the Vietnam War Veterans Day proclamation.
Do we have any Vietnam War veterans present today? All right, Marines and Navy, Air Force, Army, front and center. That's awesome. Yeah, if you're a Vietnam War veteran, please step forward. While we're waiting, you might imagine that only a Marine combat veteran would own a camouflage sport coat. So, this is a mayoral proclamation, National Vietnam War Veterans Day. We're doing it today, March 10th, 2026. Whereas, by an act of Congress signed into law by President Donald J. Trump on March 28th, 2017, the first federal statute to specifically honor Vietnam veterans created National Vietnam War Veterans Day to be observed on March 29th of each year. And whereas on March 29th, 1973, the last American combat troops withdrew from South Vietnam and more than 9 million men and women served in the U.S. military services during the Vietnam War era. Whereas on March 29th, 2026, that day marks the 53rd anniversary of the full withdrawal of combat troops from Vietnam. And whereas 58,724 men and women died serving during the Vietnam War, and whereas due to the divisive nature of the Vietnam War, few returning veterans were properly welcomed home and honored for their service and sacrifice to the founding goals and ideals of our nation. Whereas the city of Prescott prides itself in valuing its many veteran residents, and whereas it's only right and proper that the city of Prescott and its residents recognize and honor all Vietnam War veterans for their service and sacrifice. Now, therefore, Kathy Rusing, Mayor of the City of Prescott, on behalf of this City Council, does hereby encourage all citizens to display the flag of the United States, to honor the Vietnam War veterans, and do hereby acknowledge March 29th, 26 as National Vietnam War Veterans Day. So thank you. We gotta have a picture. Oh, yeah. Okay, here. Sorry. We gotta have.
Thank you for your service.
Okay.
And then we'll have Councilman Ruby make his way down to present the Water Awareness Month proclamation.
Okay.
Hang on, hold it. Oh, I guess all right. I'll hand it off. I got it.
Hand off.
Brian.
Water Awareness Month. Whereas this essential and precious resource was recognized by Arizona's governor in 2008 with an executive order that designates April as Water Awareness Month, and whereas the city's water resources continue to experience increasing pressures from prolonged drought, climate variability, and population growth, and whereas information, education, awareness, and engagement are fundamental to ensuring that citizens, businesses, visitors, and elected officials remain mindful, committed stewards of this vitally important shared resource. And whereas simple actions such as fixing leaks, using water-efficient appliances, landscaping with native and drought-tolerant plants, and practicing mindful water use can significantly contribute to conservation efforts. And whereas the City of Prescott is installing advanced water metering infrastructure, which offers customers the ability to monitor their own water usage and sign up for leak and high use alerts, and whereas the City of Prescott offers residents rebates through the Water Conservation Incentive Program to encourage water conservation inside and out this month and every month of the year, and whereas the City of Prescott is committed to long-term planning efforts with the goal of delivering high-quality water and managing its water resources to meet the needs of its current and future customers. Now, therefore, Kathy Roosing, Mayor of the City of Prescott, does hereby proclaim April 2026 as Water Awareness Month. Thank you for your work. Now we line up for Danielle. I think we want the City of Prescott side. You want this behind us, right? In the middle.
Don't put me in the middle.
Cool.
Small but mighty.
All right, and as Councilman Ruby makes his way back up, I'll move us on to the open call to the public. The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement. Residents may comment and address the council regarding matters that are not included on the posted agenda during the call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a green speaker card and submit it to me prior to the meeting being convened. As a reminder, speakers are limited to 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited to 40 minutes in total with the following stipulations. Citizens will be limited to addressing the council on the same topic only 4 times in total. If a topic has been addressed more than 5 times by different speakers, the mayor may limit future discussion on the topic. Topics of a primarily national concern may be limited at the discretion of the mayor, and the call to the public shall not be used to address the council on current or pending legal matters by a party or their representative. I do have 6 comment cards, and the first one is from Bonnie McMahon.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak today. Bonnie McMinn. My comments today concern the Prescott Rodeo Fairgrounds Master Plan engagement and the focus on process and information sharing and not project outcomes. I'd like to recommend 2 steps to help the council, the staff, and the community that are working from the same information. One example involves February 2nd Visioning Open House. The community participated in a survey regarding the future of the Prescott Rodeo Fairgrounds property, yet those results have not yet been presented to the council or to the public. Participation in that survey was limited to those able to attend the open house. Unlike the community-wide survey currently underway, as Mayor Pro Tem Furworth had mentioned, for the Recreation Master Plan, and previously for the SR 89 corridor. Because participation was limited, it becomes even more important that these results are shared publicly and reviewed by the council. Since the open house, the consultant held a March 2nd stakeholder meeting where participants explored potential site layouts using an aerial map of the property. This suggests that the planning effort may already be moving into spatial configuration and design considerations before broader public input has been reviewed. The consultant engagement was approved last October, and several council members were not on council when that project framework was established. Taking time now to review the framework together will help ensure that the project proceeds with clear direction and shared understanding by everyone. Before the design advances further, a study session would allow council to review the project framework, including the community survey results, project scope, milestones, public engagement schedule, and current and future expenditures from the $15.3 million state appropriation, along with key considerations for traffic, parking, circulation, access, modernization, and other financial implications. How we plan this public asset will shape Prescott for generations because few public properties carry this level of visibility and community history. This request is about transparency, process, and sequencing, not the outcomes. Given the high level of community interest in the rodeo fairgrounds, a town hall style meeting could also provide an opportunity for open dialogue among council staff and residents. Because this is a public asset that will be used for decades to come, high level of transparency and engagement is simply good governance. I respectfully request that council direct staff to organize a study session and a town hall style meeting before moving forward with this project. Thank you for the chance to speak today, Mayor. Thank you.
Earl Duquet.
Earl Duquet, 530 Fairgrounds, Mayor Roosing, council members, thank you for the time. More than 50 years ago, Prescott played itself in one of my favorite movies, Junior Bonner, a film about a changing West that I think every Prescottonian should watch. Steve McQueen's aging rodeo rider, he returns home, drives through the Dells to find his town being subdivided and rebuilt. Land tied to family and work, giving way to development and spectacle. Director Sam Peckinpah wasn't really making a rodeo movie. He was capturing what happens when a living, working landscape becomes entertainment infrastructure. That tension is just not Hollywood. It sits beneath today's discussions about the scale and future of facilities at the Prescott Fairgrounds Rodeo Grounds. For the historic neighborhoods surrounding the grounds that were formed in the early 1900s, Idlewild, Mile High, Doherty, and others, these are not abstract planning questions. Many residents there are not newcomers, but families who have lived alongside the fairgrounds for generations. Their lives evolved with the fairgrounds that long operated at a compatible community scale. Future development that increases intensity, traffic, and event volume has the potential to shift that balance and place greater impacts directly on nearby neighborhoods. As council considers lease and investment decisions tied to the Fairgrounds Master Plan, questions of scale and community compatibility are directly at issue. Given the importance of these decisions, additional opportunities for public engagement could be helpful. Town halls, additional study sessions, perhaps a community survey like I got in the mail the other day. It was a fantastic survey. Could help residents better understand the options and provide meaningful input. Again, thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, Earl.
Feather Levy.
Hi there. My name's Feather. My pronouns are they, them. Thank you for this chance to use the microphone. As you can tell, I'm younger than most of the people in this room, and it's quite unusual that I'm able to attend this meeting. My employment allows me flexible hours, so I'm able to attend a meeting at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. However, I have other friends, also my age, late 20s, early 30s, maybe in their 40s too, who work jobs and provide to this economy and cannot take time off of work to come to these meetings. Therefore, they are prevented from participating in democracy. Please consider moving these meetings to a time when people of my generation can attend. Thank you for the chance to speak to you.
Thank you, Feather.
Louise Mortimer.
Good afternoon, esteemed council members and Mayor Rusing. My name is Louise Mortimer, a resident and unofficial spokesperson for the Badger Mountain in Yavapai County. I stand before you today to address the imminent auction of Badger Mountain, often referred to as P Mountain by the residents of Prescott. We have reviewed the public statement regarding the sale of this land and believe it is imperative to prioritize this issue for our community, given its significant impact on Prescott's future. Recently, a group of us, Badger Mountain residents, a very small group of us, have collected over 400 signatures in about 10 hours, including that of the mayor. Thank you, Mayor. With additional time, we could easily gather thousands more. These signatures reflect not only the concerns of local residents, but also the voices of tourists who cherish the open spaces and scenic trails. Each of you are being handed out a packet with these documents that I'm referring to, and I would like to emphasize during my allotted time. In recognition of the land's potential value to developers, the Open Space Alliance of Central Yavapai County designated 1,557 acres, including Badger Mountain, as suitable land for conservation purposes back in 2000. The documents indicated that on August 1st, 2000, the State Land Commissioner reclassified these lands as suitable for conservation purposes under Order 005-2000/2001. Those documents are in your packages. This land also serves as a vital wildlife corridor for numerous animals and provides essential hunting grounds for eagles and hawks. As we know, during nesting season, we close off Lynx Lake for those eagles, and we see them frequently in our neighborhood hunting in that open space. While 609 acres may appear small to us, for the creatures that rely on this space for hunting and shelter, its loss would devastate their habitat and threaten their populations. By preserving this land, we are not only maintaining the natural skyline, but also protecting thousands of voiceless animals. While the city may assert that it lacks the authority to cancel or delay this sale, the City Council possesses the power to collaborate with local and state agencies to present a united front and advocate for a delay. We ask that you engage with the Yavapai County Development Services, the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors, the State Attorney General, as we all know is a Prescott native, and the Arizona State Land Development to explore alternative options. Additionally, the city has the opportunity to purchase this land for conservation, much like it did with Prescott Valley to protect Glassford Hill. Let's work together to safeguard our community's natural heritage. And a few more things to consider. Even though this parcel is outside city limits, does the city believe it has a responsibility to advocate for land decisions that will clearly affect Prescott residents? If Prescott is everybody's hometown, do you think the residents and tourists want to see the historic ridgeline that defines Prescott turned into a housing development? Does the council currently know of the current zoning of that land? Is the city willing to take any action to preserve this historic ridgeline? If so, why hasn't the city filed a formal protest to delay or cancel the sale of this land? And finally, as spoken previously, as our water resources are already strained, would the city have to provide water to this area if it is developed for housing? Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Tammy Lambert.
Thank you, Louise.
Tammy Lambert, Yavapai County. I am speaking on regards to Badger Mountain. obviously very personal to all of us. And I would just like to say that the Arizona State Land Department can cancel this auction up until the very moment that they accept the last bid. So this is doable if we have the power behind it. And they have canceled auctions before in their history. Thank you very much. Please take this seriously.
Thank you, Tammy.
Truly Bracken.
Mayor and Council, I'm Truly Bracken. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. This past week, the consultant held a stakeholders meeting on the master planning process, a series of stakeholder meetings actually, to allow input from various groups on the proposed layout of the rodeo grounds. We actually moved around tiles on a photographic map. That crystallized my environmental concerns. We were missing key elements as we proposed various sites for new activities and buildings on the very limited space at the rodeo grounds. I watched as someone in my own small group initially proposed to locate another use right on top of the existing biological treatment basin, which was not labeled on the photograph we were using as a base. There were tiles to place for all kinds of uses, including parking this time, but there was none for a critical element, existing and future pollution control for our waterways, starting with Miller Creek, which then leads into Granite Creek, which then leads into Watson Lake. I remain concerned about why the consultant would be asked to proceed without including these critical environmental elements in their plan. Given the interest of the public and this council in the water quality in our creeks and our lakes, and the efforts of the city to mitigate the very same pollutants that are washed into Miller Creek once they reach Watson Lake, how can we justify ignoring this? How can the needed facilities be properly cited as an afterthought rather than as a required element? Their location seems to be critical with regards to their proximity to Miller Creek. I'd strongly suggest that this is yet another reason we must have a more open and transparent process that engages the public and the council in getting earlier input well before other elements are first put in place in a draft master plan. This should not be delayed. If environmental impacts are ignored at this point, what else of interest to the council and the public might also not be timely addressed? Thank you.
Thank you, Truly.
That's all, Mayor. That's all.
Okay. We're moving on to number 9, the consent agenda. You want me to read the...
We don't read the consent agenda. So if you'd like to ask if there's anyone that wishes to pull anything, then we can do so, and then we can take a motion and a vote.
Let's see. We have item F was requested to be pulled by Council Member Mary Frederickson. Anyone else want to pull an item? Okay, continue.
Thank you, ma'am.
I need a motion on the balance of the consent agenda, please.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 9A through 9E.
Second.
Councilwoman Frederickson and Councilman Ruby, if you could please select, or if your screen's not working, you can let me know verbally.
My
Or I'm
screen
sorry,
is
Councilman
not
Ruby.
working.
Are you in favor of approving the consent agenda A
Yes.
through E? Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem, I assume yes, since you made the motion.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 7-0. Now you can ask your questions on F.
Thank you. I did pull item F off the consent agenda for a very brief question. There was some concern that had been expressed by a citizen that the current sodium lights that are along this stretch, he found very intrusive into his yard at night because of bleed over. And he had a question, and I didn't have an answer to provide, and I'm hoping you can do that for me, which is these LED streetlights that are being proposed here. Do they have the same kind of spread as the sodium lights? Is there any shielding on the fixtures themselves to keep the light footprint where it belongs as opposed to off into the neighborhoods?
Yeah, so first off, the reason we chose the areas that we chose, which are primarily arterials around the hospital, kind of fanning out from there, is to minimize impacts to apartments, single-family residents, and things like that. But yes, if we come upon an area, and so our goal is to put them in areas where we mainly have commercial and we don't have apartment complexes, but if we get into an area where we do impact places where people live, we do have the ability to shield them. A lot of these newer lights that are built by GE and other manufacturers, and the one we're using is GE, actually have plates that go right on the bottom of the glass, and so they can direct the light a lot more closely than just having like shields around the back side or the front side. So our intention would be to be sensitive to that impact and then address that as we put them in. So the answer is yes.
Thank you. And would that include shielding that prevents the light from reaching to the stars?
Yeah, so in general, the light is shed down. Obviously, there's an impact just from lighting in general, but it's very directed now. The lighting technology is getting better. So it will be directed down and into the roadway as much as we can, and then for sure shielded from the back and from going up. Yes.
Thank you. I know looking at the map as far as the proposal going down Miller Valley Road, there's the relatively newish apartment complexes along that stretch. So that kind of location where there are people living right on Miller Valley Road.
Yeah, and this is a voucher grant program, basically that provides for us to get reimbursed for the purchase of the most we can get. So we were able to buy 210. While we gave maps, that was really for when we submitted the grant, but we can be selective in which ones we actually put in. So we'd really love to focus by 4 points and really focus up and east and west and south. But if we can avoid, because we only have so many we can put in, areas like where the apartment complex is, we'd likely not do those. We'd probably go maybe more north or more over by the high school. We're just trying to use them in a way that would minimally impact people who live in the area. And so we have a lot of flexibility. I did include the maps just to show you that, hey, we've thought about where we're going to go, but we're sensitive to that. We really want this to be a positive experience for our whole community, and just to get the advantage of better lighting that's safer and energy efficiency savings.
Thank you for that, and thank you for pursuing the grant money. That was great.
I have a comment. This is something that we've needed to do for a long time. These old street light heads, I assume, are from the 60s?
They're an old technology.
Yeah, they're old technology. And several years ago, we had a Snyder do an energy audit, and that was one of their recommendations, was to replace these old street light heads with new LED lights, and it would save the taxpayers quite a lot of money on what we spend on our APS bill.
Sure.
And I think this is something that's been a long time coming. I was up in Flagstaff a year ago, and when I was out there walking around, I noticed that they also had the LED lights, and it was in the evening, and they were adequate and not a lot of glare. Yeah. And I think we're getting a great deal, 210 for $76,500, and then we're using our own labor force, Public Works, to replace them.
Yep. Yeah,
And-
we'll be doing that when they get them in.
Yeah. Are there any plans to apply for future grants to do the streets residential?
Yeah, so
streets?
this grant was actually requested by the city manager's office, and we just supported them through this voucher program. But certainly, I think these programs, they're from the Department of Energy. They're energy efficiency block grants, and I know that they look at those programs each year. So if there's opportunity, the city will be going after those.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you'll notice on your water bill, there's a 75-cent a month streetlight fee, which I think is a pretty good bargain.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Any other comments? Do I hear a motion?
Yes, Mayor, Mary Frederickson, I'll move to approve consent item 9F.
Second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0. Next item is 10A, adoption of ordinance number 2026-1936, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, approving a municipal court lease agreement between the city of Prescott and Goodwin Street Investments, LLC.
Do we have a presentation?
We do. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Patrick Gann, Prescott City Judge. This has been a long time coming, and they say that you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. And I'll tell you, we've been looking at a lot of frogs. There were many buildings, many of which were very old, had reached the end of their useful life. There were some that just didn't fit all the purposes because in addition to the courthouse, we have to have certain security considerations for parking and staff entering and exiting the building. The perfect property actually came up. It was found by city staff. It's a standalone building. Right now, it's a lease, but the city does have right of first refusal to purchase the building, which I believe is very important because the amount of improvements we're looking at, I'm just talking about walls, a bench, bathrooms, things like that for a court facility is going to be a substantial investment. My concern with just leasing a property for 5 or 10 years was that in 10 years, we'd be at the same place. That should not happen here. This building is approximately, I believe, from Tim, I think it's about 20 years old, has a 50-year roof, and our lease includes the fact that the current landlord will be responsible for the maintenance outside of the building, which is something that a lot of the others do not. This lease is a total lease. There's no additional cams on top of it, and I believe is what we need to move forward with the court. We have a substantial caseload. Right now, we have a single courtroom. We're in the overflow courtroom of Superior Court, and we just can't push the cases through. We don't have enough space. So I very much encourage the adoption of this lease. Any questions?
Thank you. I just want to, for the public, to clarify where the location is. It's off of Goodwin Street in the Park Plaza Shopping Center. On the corner, there's a freestanding building that used to be like a medical supply building. And that's the building that we're interested in here. Any other comments from the, okay, Patrick.
Yes, thank you, Judge. So the tenant improvements, do you have a preliminary number of what that might look like?
We do. From facilities, they're giving me a number of $150 a square foot. That's why the fact of a lease that in 5 to 10 years, we might be leaving those improvements just did not seem a feasible approach. We will have the ability to buy this building. The other benefit is that it's only 5 minutes from downtown, so when people inevitably go to the old courthouse, which you know they will for years, instead of having to say, we'll have to reset your case, we can simply say, we'll see you in 5 minutes. The same parking structures are available. There's a great deal of parking in the actual parking center. So a lot of those issues, there's also restaurants nearby for jurors. They don't have to leave. We have things that are very centrally located. And to find a building of that age in downtown Prescott was just a stroke of luck. The tenant that's been in there has been there since the old pharmacy closed. And they actually just recently purchased a building, which is why it happened to come available. Fortunately, Facilities was able to locate it.
Yeah, and we did spend months and months looking for a place, and we explored a lot of options. We looked at the mall, and this is definitely, we're thrilled with this option. And we have to be out of the courthouse by July 1st. Are we going to get an extension, or are we going to set up a tent somewhere?
Well, it's funny you say that. That was the exact conversation I had this morning with the presiding judge, and did point out that we might have to have a tent in the courthouse square. I do believe the county's going to be willing to work with us. I discussed with them the fact that right now it's a tentative possession June 1st. We then have to do the improvements. So I believe they will. Of course, it has to go to the county manager as well as the county board of supervisors. But I believe they are going to work with us. So they understand that we're taking action. It's going to take time to move forward.
So you think that it'll take about 6 months to do the improvements?
I think that's the maximum. From facilities, I think they're looking at more 3 to 4.
3 to 4, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
I have another question.
Okay, Patrick.
So I think the public would be interested in knowing a little bit more about the budget implication. I have no idea what y'all may have paid, when you were in the courthouse, and now you've got that. You've got the tenant improvements, and I wondered, how does that impact the city's budget?
Well, the current intergovernmental agreement, the city is getting quite the deal. We're paying $26,500 for facilities. The actual agreement also includes that we're paying 40% plus benefits for the court consolidated manager, and we're paying 50% of the salary and benefits for the current bailiff that were split between the two courts. When we leave, of course, we'll stop paying that. That's a significant, the lease on this is $160,000 a year. The difference is the size of the facility and that we've outgrown it. Just the number of cases we have, we cannot process them. We're presently at about a 45 to 60 day set when things are getting reset. Having to set trials out, I'm having to set 60 to 90 days because that's the first open slot we have because we only have one courtroom. This will solve that. Our goal is to have 2 full courtrooms. We may not build the other second one out completely. It may just be a hearing room, but we could actually have 2 jury trials going with a pro tem judge, which should be possible. Please also be aware the city is in the process for the new fiscal year. They're going to have 2 prosecutors. So we'll have more staff supporting that as well.
Thank you.
Yes, as we grow, everything has to grow.
Correct. We're growing from a small town to a city.
Yes.
And this is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other comments? Oh, Mr. Gehring.
Yes, I noticed when looking at the site from Google Earth Street View that there is a medical supply business there. Is that still there, or?
They're vacating. They're vacating. They actually have purchased their own building, and so they are vacating the building and will be taking the entire building.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You also have Councilman Ruby with a request to speak, Mayor.
Mr. Ruby.
What guarantees do we have that we'll be able to purchase this building? I get concerned about doing renovations and then someone having leverage over us because we're going to want to keep the building after we renovate it.
Correct. I know conversations were had by staff with the current owner as well as when they negotiated the lease. The current parcel is one parcel. In order to purchase just the court building, there would have to be a subdivision so that we don't have to purchase the whole park plaza. So that needs to occur. That'll take sometime within the next 12 to 24 months. The owner does indicate he's receptive to it. It's just his timing right now, because of tax implications, is not appropriate. There are some things that he's working on to make sure and minimize those in the near future. By that, I mean sometime within the next 2 to 5 years. That's what he's conveyed to us.
So is it possible to set the price now as we take on the lease?
That's a discussion I think that they tried to have. My understanding was legal was involved during the negotiations and that the parties were not able to reach that. Again, our problem is we're under a time deadline, and my concern is that we're going to drag these negotiations out another 90 days, and quite frankly, we're on the verge of being homeless. They'll give us an extension, but I think the extension we're going to get is if you're not out, you will be doing court in the park. So that's my concern. I understand. I agree with you. I'd like to set the price now because, they're not making more land and certainly not in downtown Prescott. But I just don't think that that's available or feasible for us right now. I understand, Councilman. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that we've had a history of sometimes people through negotiations extracting a higher cost from the taxpayers of this city.
I understand. And I agree. I would like to set that price. I just don't think we can do it right now. This building literally came up and facilities was on it within a day of it coming available. I think it's a very high demand property given its location and given its age and given its state. I encourage you all to look up the address, to Google it. It's a nice building. And there's very little demolition for us to do our build out. Many spaces we would have significant demolition, which increases our cost. This one will not. And we're going to try and save as much as we can inside. There's an enormous counter that used to be used for the pharmacy when it was there. We are hoping to use that as our customer service counter.
Good. Can repurpose some aspects of it. Mr. Gambogi.
Did you say earlier you're rehabbing this at $160 a square foot?
Facilities has told me they believe the number's $150.
And it currently is 7,600 square feet facility?
Yes, sir.
So we're talking over $1 million?
About 1.2.
How many square feet were in the old facility you had?
Well, that's the problem is right now we're in just a Superior Court courtroom and the offices are shared. So there's less than 1,000 square feet. We do not have an office for the prosecutor. They're using the current jury room. The bathroom situation leaves a lot to be desired. We have no waiting area for people. It's way
You
too
have a
many
number? You said 1,000 square feet?
I would say that's about right with the current courtroom and the office space.
What was the old rent?
26.5 is the current IGA.
Thank you.
And I just would like to make a comment to build a custom home in Prescott. It's not unusual to pay $300 to $400 a square foot.
Right. And my understanding, because I did have these discussions with the city manager, is that to do a new build on city-owned property would be approximately $1,000 a square foot. So that's why I believe this was a best of both worlds solution. And I do understand Councilman Ruby's comments. I would like to have set the price now too.
Yeah. Mary?
Thank you. I haven't been inside that building, so I'm not sure, but you're envisioning 2 courtrooms?
Yes, ma'am.
Big enough for trial?
Yes, ma'am.
In both? Staff, are you envisioning record keeping also in this building? I don't know what the status is at the county building for the records needed for trials.
Right. A lot of stuff is now kept electronically. That's part of the issue that we're having with our staff. We're pushing so many cases through the courtroom that our staff is unable to do any of the archiving of files. We actually have one particular area where there's probably about 50 boxes sitting to process out. There will be areas for storage. There also will be, more importantly, offices or areas for the prosecutor and other attorneys. Attorneys can have a private conversation with their client instead of standing in the corner whispering like it's a football game. That's a little difficult, especially some of these cases. For instance, this morning I dealt with a case of public sexual indecency. That's not something people necessarily want to talk about in front of 40 other people with their attorney. So we'll have a room where they can have a consultation in private. The prosecutor will be able to speak to people. We'll also have a room that has 2 doors. Right now there's a single door if there were to be some type of issue. And we do have sometimes people get angry with the prosecutors because they don't like what they tell them. They would at least have a way to exit that facility without them being in harm's way.
And a secure evidence room?
Yes, most of the evidence that we get in city court is typically documentary. There is some blood evidence, but usually it's mostly documentary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I understand.
Sorry, just from your assessment, you believe you'll be able to fit
everything in there.
Your
Absolutely.
needs in this building.
Yeah, and there's a place already for a secure server room because under Administrative Office of the Court standards, our servers that we use have to be secured and locked. We have to have a safe, then that has to be locked in a locked area. All that stuff will fit in here. And the way the plumbing is in this building, because it's above grade, is that it's not difficult to add restrooms or that type of thing where normally we run into a big expense. And please, I'm not a developer. I have to rely on the facilities people, and they're telling me this.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I have a comment. I believe there might be a subcontractor contractor interested in subleasing space that processes driver's licenses and auto licenses too.
Right. We would like to get somebody in there because a lot of times people need to go and get their driving record or correct their plates, or there's things that they need to do. There are third-party companies that do that. Of course, we'd have to go out to a public bid so that we're not giving space to somebody. Right now, we do have the ability to have an MVD kiosk where people can go just like MVD Now. I don't know if you've ever used that, and they can print out certain records. Those kiosks are available. There is a cost to the court every month. We're looking at whether we do that or have a contractor. Of course, the contractor's full service. Plus, if people want to renew their plates or whatever, they can come into the courthouse and they can do that stuff. And again, they'll recognize that when they're there in that service. So yeah, we would like to do that very much.
Yeah. Well, it's an excellent location. It's got parking, close to food, close to downtown. So any public comment out there?
We do have 2 public comment cards, Mayor. The first one's from Bonnie McMinn.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gambogi.
When I hear you talk, I think of the old phrase, when you're up to your neck in alligators, it's time to drain the swamp. Why do we have so many cases that we need to expand our office area by 7-fold?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking that. We've had a couple of factors going on, and that's what I spent my time in the last 6 months since I was hired coming on board, figuring out what the cause is. There's a couple of things going on. One is, you'll recall during the onboarding session, the chief of police discussed the fact that they wrote 9,000 citations in the previous year. That's a significant increase. That increase has been going on for the last couple of years, despite the fact, I believe right now the police department is something like 13 or 16 officers short. If they manage to fill those spots, there'll be even more citations.
Could you quantify the amount of increase?
Yes, absolutely. We have gone from the number 23 city court in the last, I believe, 6 years. We are now the number 16 city court based on filings.
No, in terms of you quoted how many citations we write now.
Right. We go by filings. We have 9,000 filings now. Previously, we had something like 4,600, 4,800.
Thank you.
And what happened was a lot of those cases were just continued. The can was kicked down the road. So we are under a burden. I will tell you that in the last 8 months, we closed 1,030 misdemeanor cases. I don't mean DUIs, I mean misdemeanors. That's more than has ever been closed in a single calendar year by the court, ever.
Are there any other contributors besides traffic citations?
Well, the increased police force, the fact that there were not just traffic citations. When we say citations, that's a short form complaint for a misdemeanor. So those can be criminal cases, domestic violence, traffic violations, all those types of things come in typically on a citation form. Prosecutors also file long forms. That's why we refer to filings.
Okay. Jay?
It seems like Shangri-La. This seems perfect, right? Like, it's an ideal location. It expands our capacity. It helps to prepare us for growing. I just have this anxiety of investing $1 million+ into a space on a 5-year lease, and then someone going, well, now we want to charge you this much.
Well, and I'm actually, it's a 5-year lease with 2 extensions. So if necessary, it could be a 15-year lease. Like I say, the goal, and that was discussed, is that we would like to purchase it.
Do we have a rough estimate of what the property would cost?
I do not. What I can tell you is that a similar size property across from the mall, which does not have the location of downtown Prescott, it was the Fresenius Kidney Building, was on the market for approximately $3 million. It's under contract. I don't know what it'll close at. I just know that that's what it was on the market for. And there are some other similar properties that we looked at further out from downtown. We're in about that ballpark between 3 and 3.5.
Can we get any guarantees in the lease that we will be able to buy?
I did not negotiate the lease. It is in the lease that we have the right of first refusal. They cannot sell it to anybody else. And it is the owner's goal to divest himself eventually of the property. Mm-hmm. He explained that to me, and he seems to be I would call him a straight shooter. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. Anyone else before we go to public comment?
Bonnie McMinn.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to speak. Obviously, speaking about the lease agreement of the City Court on Goodwin, while I appreciate Judge Gann's comments, this is not what we were discussing on the agenda. We don't have any background information. In my opinion, what you're being asked to do is not vote on a simple lease, but the build out of the entire court facility, a new operational footprint for the city, renovation, as was mentioned, staffing, security, and ongoing operating costs. This becomes a long-term financial commitment to the city and not merely a real estate transaction. After making the investment, the city would be leasing the facility rather than owning it, despite best intentions, which raises important questions about accountability and stewardship of local taxpayer dollars. The concern here is transparency, which we haven't seen until this moment, process and sequencing. Good governance and fiduciary oversight requires that policy decisions come before operational decisions. Normally, this decision would start with a needs analysis, which we haven't seen, or a business plan that defines the court's operational requirements. We've heard a lot of numbers today, and evaluates alternatives before arriving at a lease agreement. If the due diligence occurred, it's not part of the packet today. For example, it would be helpful to understand the actual space requirements. It sounds like it's much bigger. The fact that we can do 2 courtrooms, I agree with Councilor Gambogi where he was going with that. The renovation costs are questionable at best, approximately this or that. Operational expenses to convert a leased building into a functioning courthouse. I would like to know whether there were shared service options, existing city facilities, or upcoming projects such as the new police facility on Prescott Lakes Parkway or the Marina Street location that could possibly be renovated. Were they part of the analysis? Were efforts made to renegotiate the lease with the IGA, with the county? The pattern is becoming familiar. Council is being asked to approve a conclusion before you have a policy discussion. I'm feeling a lot of pressure for you guys based on what you've seen on the pieces of paper versus what you're being told today. I would encourage a study session or at least another meeting to discuss the operational requirements, the financial analysis, and the facility alternatives before committing the city to a specific location. We're going to be living in a parking lot that has hot yoga, a number of restaurants, a bar, and a party store, and by all purposes, this parking lot is pretty full from 8 to 5 or perhaps even later because of the bar and the restaurants there. So I would encourage that a policy discussion happen before an operational decision. Good policy should guide operations, not follow them. Thank you very much.
Ralph Hess.
Good afternoon, Council. I am Ralph Hess. I live in Prescott. I'm going to amend my comments because a lot of what I had concerns about have been addressed by Judge Gann. And I want to thank you, first of all, for taking this off of the consent agenda, because the agenda memo failed to provide us the information that has been provided to us by Judge Gann. But one comment I do want to make that I had originally intended was during your retreat in January, you had a list of things that you needed from staff. And among that list was for staff to provide you an options analysis rather than just a conclusion and a recommendation. And that had not been done. And it still hasn't actually been done. We've gotten more information from Judge Gann as to the analysis for this particular recommendation, but we don't have the analyses of all the other options that might have been considered. I do want to address the concern raised by Councilmember Ruby, because I looked through this lease very quickly and here at the back row, and I don't see the option to purchase, or well, there's no option to purchase, but I don't see the right of first refusal. And I just glanced through it very quickly, so I might have missed it. But what I am concerned about, following up on Councilman Ruby's concern, is in paragraph 4.3G. It talks about alterations, and this is understandable. I don't know if I can find it here very quickly, but any alterations and the improvements that we're talking about putting into this property belong to the lessor, unless they can be carried out by the lessee. The lessor is not us. We're the lessee. So when we make all the improvements, which is going to be $1.2 million, or I forget what it's going to be, but it's going to be a slew of money. There's going to be a whole lot of improvements made by the city, and if you don't have an option to purchase with a purchase price at the end of the lease term, what's to prevent the landlord from saying, oh, the property that you've been leasing now has over $1 million in improvements that I own. I, the landlord, own. And so that increases the value of the property that I'm going to now charge you to purchase after we've been paying $13,500 a month for the rental property. And apparently that is rental value is including some right of first refusal. Anyways, those are the concerns I have. I agree with Ms. McMinn. Why not have a study session on this? Go into a little more detail than you got today and avoid voting on something that you've just now heard all this information that wasn't in the packet I read. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. I have a question for legal.
That's all, Mayor.
I have a question for legal. Is there a right of first refusal in this document?
There is. It's in section 9.3, a right of first refusal.
Mr. Grady?
So continuing on that same line, has our real estate attorney looked at this and feels that if we put $1 million in, we're not paying for an inflated value on the property 5 years from now?
I'm not sure what your question is, but the provision where improvements to the property remain subject to the ownership of the lessor, that's in every one of our leases, both where we lease and where we're leasing our property to others. That won't change. So the question then comes down to this option to purchase, which, yes, we don't have that, and there wasn't time to do it. At this point, council doesn't have to vote on this. But to be clear, we never chose to leave the courthouse. We are being kicked out of the courthouse. And so that's why there's the rush is in place.
Lois?
Yeah, I had questions. I feel like we have been getting updates from our city manager in our Friday updates about multiple other properties and how things have been falling through over the course since we got the news and what's been happening. So if anyone's been keeping up with our updates, we've been getting them. So while I completely understand that this cover sheet didn't share all the remaining information, I think the judge provided it today. And I honestly feel like we've paid for renovation to move city council downstairs, that's about what we spent, about $1 million. So we've dealt with this before. We're about to be homeless. I'm counting on Judge Gann with the work that he's doing and the cases that's going on, that we're going to be raising some free labor for recreation services, and we're going to be raising some fees that is going to help pay for this. So I would like to get this man a home so he can get to work. And I'm ready to vote today.
Mr. Grady.
To the point about the $1 million for renovation, Dallin, have we identified a source for that, since it's imminent? It could happen. The renovation should begin pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's correct. We have a contractor lined up, and I just got a text that we've looked at 16 other properties.
Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve. Oops, I'm in the wrong.
That's okay. It's adoption of ordinance number 2026-1936.
Thank you.
Second.
Please vote.
Councilman Ruby, thank you. That passes 7-0. Our next item is WSA 26-005, a water service application submitted by Woda Cooper Development, Inc., location between Lakeview Plaza Lane and Mogollon Road, south of Willow Creek Road, a portion of APN 106-20-509, 508, 507A, and 506A.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Brian Reese. I'm the Water Resources Manager under the Community Development Department. Per the amended 2022 Water Management Policy, water service agreements, applications are submitted for the project for staff to review, determine estimated demand for the projects, and contemplate approval for the water service. So the project in front of you here today, as you can see, per the vicinity map, is located between Lakeview and Mogollon Road, over next to the Goodwill and the Ocean Blue Car Wash. No formal planning application was required for this project per the Land Development Code, so it went straight to water. Demand analysis was completed by staff, utilizing residential water multipliers in the Water Resource Management Model, the WRM, as we call it. The project consists of a building with 82 multifamily units, parking garage, and landscape buffer areas along the parking garage and the perimeter of the site. So based on the WRM multifamily multiplier of 0.12 acre feet per year, the demand for the building was estimated at 9.8 acre feet. Per the site plan that you're seeing here, there's approximately 1 acre of area available for landscape, and using Arizona Department of Water Resources low use water plant suggested value of 1.5 acre feet per acre per year. We're estimating the outdoor use at 1.5 acre feet for this project, giving a total demand estimate of 11.3 acre feet per year. Currently, in the water budget set for January through the end of June, there is still 25 acre feet in the residential budget that's available for this project. So the Water Issues Subcommittee heard this project in the March meeting and made a recommendation to forward this to council for approval. We do have representatives for the applicant here today, so they can answer any questions that you have. So, in summary, we have a 82-unit multifamily apartment building, estimated building demand of 9.8 acre feet, estimated landscape outdoor demand of 1.5 acre feet, no previous usage, and an estimated total demand of 11.3 acre feet. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Do I have any questions from Mr. Grady?
Yeah, lots of questions today.
I know you do.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to hear from the developer. This is clearly a multifamily project, but it meets some specific needs that are really important to our community, and I think the public would benefit from hearing more about the project itself.
Mr. Ruby?
I'll wait till after they speak.
Good afternoon, members of council, Mayor Pro Tem Mayor. Thank you for hearing from us today. Indeed, the councilman is actually really right here, is that this is not just another apartment development. In fact, this is a very critical project to really develop a proposed 82 units here of housing to serve those that are in greatest need or have the greatest stress, if you will, on paying disproportionate amounts of rent right now in your community, specifically those who are 30% to 80% average median income. And for those of you that wonder what that really is on a breakdown, that really means those that make $38,000 to $72,000 annually in income. Those are good working people here in your city. These are not homeless individuals. We don't have any Section 8 or project-based vouchers affiliated with this project endeavor. It covers a gamut of households from veterans on fixed incomes to some seniors who may be looking for other options to a good high percentage of working class people that are right here in your city already. It was talked recently at a CDBG hearing held in these chambers just a few weeks back that there are over 4,000 households in your local community who are impacted by overpaying rent, who are in this income bracket. And our 82 units, even though you may say or have people out there who say we've built enough apartments, our apartments will address 2% of your overall demand of what we have here today in right now in the city for people who are overburdened. This 87,000 square foot building would reflect or be a $25 million investment on our part in your community, with a projected construction start in 2027, finishing in Q2 of 2028, with leasing starting thereafter. These buildings don't happen very quickly, and there's a lot of things we still need to do. Our firm itself, established in 1990, 365 projects completed, is solely affordable housing, and this is all we do. We don't do other forays into other types of things, commercial endeavors, so forth. And we keep our properties. We maintain them. We're the property manager. We're also a long-term owner, and we don't dispose of the asset. We stay with these properties in hand as we turn into an ESOP or employee-owned company. We're glad to continue investing in these properties and keeping them affordable. In fact, during our CDBG hearing, we had talked with members here present as part of that committee that we would look to make obligations out the gate as keeping this project affordable to workforce families for a minimum of 60 years. In addition to the water service needs, though, that's not the only thing. There's other things that need to be contemplated by the city prior to an April 1 deadline, including such things as potentially waiving impact or permit fees. Permit fees, I think, are potential here where the city could show its stake in the game, which is critical to the state, as well as an at least $100,000 loan ask that we have made that, again, not here today on this agenda by any means, but that needs to be contemplated in order for this project to be successful. And I just want to reiterate, this project really does depend on a couple critical things, which is state housing tax credits, federal housing tax credits that are administered by the state. That's a highly competitive credit. That makes up for $19.7 million in the capital stack, and that is then those tax credits are then placed with an investor, with a bank or an insurance company. That really funds the project here. Our ask of the city has only been for marginal loan commitments, no grants, no free dollars, only a loan that would be paid back to the city and would reflect 0.1% of the actual overall capital stack, which is a pretty good return when you really think about it, because we're asking the city to invest $104 per unit over maybe 5 years, even less if that term is longer, depending on what the length of that commitment to be. In fact, it sounds like a pretty good deal based on what the judge was just up here asking for, if you ask me. So in addition, and to consider that too, also important is that if this project doesn't come here, it's going to go somewhere else in this county or to another county. We anticipate that the state will receive 30 to 40 requests this year in all. It will award 9 or 10 projects. That's not an if. They do award 9 to 10 projects. They will do that. So if you don't want that project here, it will go elsewhere simply, and you will still have the crisis you have today on housing. Speaking to the water conservation, though, we do keep our stormwater on site. We've been looking at underground stormwater strategies. 120 of our developed projects are green projects, green certified projects. In fact, we are going for NGBS certification here and a silver standard, which is a very high bar. These projects end up being very energy efficient, which then saves tenants costs on utilities, which means they have then more money to spend out in the community, go to doctors, go to a restaurant, go out and buy the critical things they need, not just cash strapped to pay their rent and their utilities. I would take any questions you have here today.
I have a question. Is each unit going to be sub-metered so the tenant pays their own water, or is it all going to be on one meter?
No, we sub-meter all utilities at our company. And we also believe it's part of the education awareness of informing a tenant how they are using utilities. And when you're aware of that,
yes, it helps conservation, helps with our conservation. So thank you. This sounds like a turnkey.
It is a turnkey project, yeah.
And the city staff isn't going to be spending any time managing your tenants and your programs for you.
Now,
you have all that expertise.
We have a full compliance department. We have a credit committee that meets daily and screens tenants. They must pass background check, credit check, residency requirements.
I'm sorry. I'm getting very uncomfortable. We're way
I'm sorry.
off topic.
You're right. I got into
This is for the water service application only. And we've deviated really far away from that. So I need the mayor and the council and our speaker to go on back to the water only, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ruby.
Yeah, I wanted to, well, commend you now on the idea of underground water storage. I think there's a kind of default setting with retention ponds, which leads to evaporation, which doesn't help our aquifers. So I appreciate that aspect of your plan. And I guess I would say this is a good prompt for us in the Water Issues Subcommittee to begin to develop policies. And perhaps we could look at your project as a model to begin to build a policy on for future building here, so that any building coming in is really looking at stormwater catchment and conservation in that way. This is probably off topic and Sarah's going to come after me. But I believe you have a deadline in order to get the support from the city to qualify for the LIHTC grants. Can you say anything just very brief?
That is off topic. And we've already gone off topic.
I was correct. Never mind. I didn't ask that question.
We can say it's coming to a special council meeting.
Yeah, we are going to have a special council meeting on March 24th because we need to meet that April 1st deadline. We were supposed to be on spring break, but we're highly motivated to have a quorum here for you. So, Mr. Gehring.
Can we talk you into reducing the landscape use of 1.5 by going to xeriscaping?
We could look at various components to do that. I want to make sure that we would be compliant with our NGBS and our green rating certification. that is, by the way, something that maybe is applicable to Mr. Ruby's request, Councilman Ruby's request as well, is when you think about stormwater and or all other utility impacts, these buildings are supposed to be created in a way that they use less than what you have there already from an existing site perspective or from a new construction perspective. So we pledge to look at anything that would make it more green and more beneficial to communities all the way around.
Okay, Lois.
I was ready to make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw the waving. Mr. Ruby, are you finished? Okay, you've been chastised.
We do have one more public comment.
Okay.
Leslie Contreras.
Okay.
Sorry, a little short. Good afternoon, Council, Mayor and Council. My name is Leslie Contreras, Regional Development Manager for Yavapai Plan, formerly Central Yavapai MPO. I'm going to defer to Sarah real quick. I was going to show my support for this, but it's not necessarily for the water service agreement. So I'm going to be respectful and maybe come back in the 24th.
Please do.
Thank you. Okay, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve WSA 26-005.
Second. Please vote.
I accidentally clicked a point, but I know it's approved. So you're voting on the motion, not what the screen says. Thank you. Passes 7-0. Right. Our next item is adoption of ordinance number 2026-1938, an ordinance of the Mayor and Council of the City of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the City of Prescott's Land Development Code, Section 4.9.4B by deleting the comment box found under 4.9.4B, compatibility review guidelines, and amending 4.9.4C, parking and loading, by adding new language to replace old language and providing a severance provision.
Thank you and good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner. So we do have a proposed zoning ordinance amendment before you to our Land Development Code. This is with respect to the Downtown Business Zoning District. This is a map of that zoning district area. Basically, per the Land Development Code in the Downtown Business District, any uses that are considered hospitality, such as retail, restaurants, at this time hotels, are exempt from requiring parking on site. Uses that other uses such as apartments and stuff do require parking, and also in the Downtown Business District, any pre-1968 buildings are also exempt from requiring parking on site. That was established in 1968 through an ordinance to protect the downtown buildings. So we are before you to amend that code for this district. So in the Land Development Code, there was this commentary that was put in that basically they have to provide parking on site until the parking garage is complete. As we can see, the parking garage is complete. So this commentary is no longer prevalent. And so we're saying to remove it because it's time to remove that out of our Land Development Code. And then the second part is to section 4.9.4.C.2. This is all, it's still in our downtown business district, that we strike out other hospitality related uses in the retail. So that says service and business categories as defined by section 11.1.5E3A and section 11.15E3C. Which should not be required, notwithstanding the foregoing all uses which require overnight parking, including hotel, resort, and similar uses, shall comply with the city's parking requirements as described in section 6.2 off-street parking. So what this will require, that any new businesses that come into our downtown business district that require overnight parking will have to provide parking downtown. So this will take care of that. This still protects our 1968 buildings for the other uses, except for uses that require overnight occupancy. Planning and Zoning Commission did review this twice. We had a little confusion. this is the language that they did actually end up approving. So this is what's being brought for you today, and we're free to answer any questions. And yes, that concludes my presentation.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. It was clearly outdated, and unfortunately, it was used for the Whiskey Row Hotel. And hopefully, this will close the loophole. So going forward, if anyone purchases a piece of property or owns a piece of property and wants to demolish it for apartments or hospitality, they'll have to provide overnight parking on site. Is that right?
Correct. Even existing buildings, if they change the use to a use that requires overnight parking, they will have to provide parking.
Okay. Do I have any comments? Yes. Oh. Lois.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify because we've used two terms. I thought it was they're required to provide parking.
Yeah.
I didn't know that the word on-site parking. If they owned another piece of property, kind of like the Hacienda Inn has another piece of property across the street. So it doesn't have to be on-site of the hotel, right? It can be near.
Correct.
Thank you.
It
Perfect.
has to meet the qualifications under our parking code.
Okay. Mr. Gambogi.
I think this is a sour grapes proposal. This is when the Plaza Hotel got approved, and I don't know how many times I answered the question that parking is in the deck. We have plenty of parking in the deck. The only time the top floor is ever used is during the rodeo and the lighting of the Christmas trees. So understand, with 2 new hotels, this may never be realized, and we're spending time on a false flag.
Any other comments?
I'd like to respond to that.
Mr. Grady.
I totally disagree. This is something that the community wanted. I suspect the downtown community, business community wanted, and whether another hotel comes forward 3 years from now or 15 years from now, it's important to make this change. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree too. If we didn't pass this, the only other option would be to require the taxpayers to foot the bill for parking and build another parking garage downtown. Any other comments, or before we go to public comments? Okay, Sarah, do we have any public comments?
We do not.
You're kidding me. This
I'm
is
not.
amazing.
I have a motion,
What
Mayor.
happened? Okay.
I move to approve ordinance number 2026-1938.
Second.
Please vote.
Passes 6-1.
And thank you, Legal and Community Development, for working on this.
All right, our next item is REZ 26-001 and GPA 26-001, adoption of resolution number 2026-1978 for general plan amendment 26-001 and ordinance number 2026-1937, an ordinance of the mayor and council of the city of Prescott, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning of certain property within the city of Prescott, generally located on the northwest corner of Willow Creek Road and Nicolette Trail, from single-family minimum lot size 35,000 square feet, or SF35 zoning district, and single-family minimum lot size 9,000 square feet, SF9 zoning district, to business general zoning district. Location APN 106-21-237B 2980 Willow Creek Road. Owner Arizona Conference Corp. Seventh-day Adventist. Applicant Prescott Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Jacob Lund, Community Development, City Planner, Community Development. Today we'll be going over a general plan map amendment and a rezoning, as Sarah mentioned, on Willow Creek Road. So the request before you today is the rezoning of one 3.6 acre parcel. The current zoning is SF35 and SF9. There's two zonings associated because there was a revision of plat, which I'll touch on in a couple of slides. But with the revision of plat, the property that they combined with the SF35 lot was zoned SF9, so you will see two zonings associated with this parcel. The proposed zoning is business general. A little background on the property. So the Prescott Seventh-day Adventist Church has used this property as a church since 1991. They've also been using this area as a school for grades K through 8 since around the year 2000. That's all been approved with conditional use permits. In 2025, the school was granted a new conditional use permit as they had applied for an expansion to their facilities for additional classroom buildings. So this rezoning request is, in addition to the expansion of their classroom, they now want to offer grades 9 through 12, which are not allowed per the Land Development Code in the SF35 or SF9 zoning district. This is an area map kind of just showing you the general location of the parcels along Willow Creek Road. You also have a stoplight here. You've got Nicolette Trail, and then this becomes Smoke Tree Lane with a stoplight here, and they have entrance to the property here and here. This kind of gives you a better idea of what the property looks like today. From my understanding, they do use the Nicolette Trail for access to the property, and they only use the Willow Creek access for exiting the parcel. This is the zoning map showing the associated zonings within the area. So as you can see, the property in question is zoned SF35 here. This piece of land is SF9 and was part of the revision of plat to combine this all into one parcel. So then you have SF9 zoning here, SF35, SF18, neighborhood-oriented business to the north, and directly across Willow Creek, you have a lot of business general zoning, which is pretty common for this area. It is located in a commercial corridor, so business general, neighborhood-oriented business are pretty common along this area. Some information regarding the revision of plat I touched on earlier. It was approved and recorded July 8th of 2025. That was brought before council at that time, before the administrative approval process. With that, it did combine two parcels. The existing parcel is APN 106-21-237A, and that combined 106-21-228B. This revision of plat was also needed as part of their school expansion as they were proposing buildings on the vacant parcel that was being combined, and they had to combine the lots in order to build across property lines. I put this in here kind of to give you an idea of what they're proposing with the parcel they combined. So here you can kind of see this is the area they're proposing new classroom buildings. Right now, I believe it's just the one building with a future second building down the road sometime. But with this, you have your neighboring SF9 properties here. You do have a buffer between them as this area is a flood zone or a floodway. And then the property is also fenced to create additional buffers between what would be a newly commercial zone property and the existing single family zone properties. One more thing to touch on there. They are in the permitting process for this currently. Their permits were out for corrections, but I believe they're back in review currently, so the permits could be approved any day. This is the 2015 general plan land use map showing the designated area as low to medium density residential, 1 to 7 dwelling units per acre. And then, as you can see in this area is the subject property that we're looking to rezone. These are some snippets from our current land development code to just give you an idea of why the rezoning request is necessary. If you go down here, you can see that in SF9 or SF35, that grades K through 8 are allowed with a conditional use permit. But then when you get over here, grades 9 through 12 are not allowed in the single family zonings. These are some photos of the current property. The first one shows that we did post the property for the rezoning. The second photo is their exit along Willow Creek Road, showing the existing church and school and part of their parking lot. This first photo to the left is what I believe being used as overflow parking. So they have a very large amount of parking in that area. This is located in the northwest corner of the property. And your second photo is the parcel that was combined with the revision of plat where they will have the additional schoolroom buildings. You can kind of see it is currently fenced. This first photo on this slide shows you the Willow Tree Tapas and Wine Bar directly across the street to the south. I put this in there as a reference to business general zoned properties within the area of this location. And then the second photo is the property located north of the existing church. It's zoned neighborhood-oriented business currently, which is a commercial zoning, but it's being used as a residence. City staff from various departments have reviewed the proposal and have determined that it does meet city code requirements. These are the issues that we use for consideration when reviewing a rezoning request. I have a little more information in your packet that I provided to you guys. So this will include a minor general plan map amendment. The 2015 general plan designates this area for low to medium density residential 1 to 7 dwelling units per acre. The application does require the map amendment from low medium density residential to commercial to allow for the proposed zoning to allow for the grades 9 through 12 at this location. Staff did send mailings within 300 feet to all property owners. We did post this in the local paper, and at this time, we have not received any public comments regarding this request. On February 26, 2026, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the request and voted unanimously to recommend approval of both GPA 26-001 and REZ 26-001. And then that brings us to our recommended action and concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you might have.
Okay, do we have any comments? Mr. Grady? That was left over. Okay. Any comments? Mr. Ruby?
Yeah, I'm just curious, and this might be a question for the city attorney, is why isn't 9 through 12 allowed in single-family zonings?
As you know, the Land Development Code is going to be rewritten, and we might have the answers to those types of things. But I can give you an assumption, which is that 9 through 12 often will have more drivers instead of drop-offs and that type of thing. So I think it's just kind of the burdensome use on the neighborhood as opposed to having kids that just get dropped off.
This would be my question for you then. Do we need another high school?
Yes, I think you always need the increase for good education in Arizona.
Yeah. Is the applicant here? Do they wish to speak?
Yes, there is a representative from the church here.
Okay.
I'm Pastor Tony, and it's our church that started this school.
Little higher with the microphone.
Our church started this school 99 years ago in a different location here in Prescott. And it has grown. I have been the pastor of the church that sponsors this project. And I've been their pastor for a little over 8.5 years. And since I came, it grew from 13 students to over 80 students. And we have surveyed the parents. They love our school. They want to keep the kids educated in our system. It's not just for our church, it's for the community at large. Students are brought in from a variety of different backgrounds, some religious and some not. But the parents love the values of our school, and they've asked us to pursue a high school. So in answer to your question, this is a request coming from your community, and we are responding. We have raised nearly $600,000 to renovate our property, to replat it, and to do other things and things like that to meet this need. And so thank you so much for giving us a chance to bring it before you today.
Okay, any other questions, Mary?
Not so much a question as a comment. I know, Pastor, when you came before the Board of Adjustment back in November for the conditional use permit to build an additional classroom on the portion of the parcel that you acquired, I told you afterwards, I was there as the liaison, not part of the board, that I thought you were heading in such a great direction, and you described for me how the parents of both people associated with your congregation and parents that are not very much looking forward to this additional service that you're providing for the high schoolers in the community. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
All right, any other comments?
Councilman Gambogi is on there.
Oh, Mr.
Did you
Gambogi.
move forward to the next item?
Mr. Gambogi.
Jake, that's probably the most thorough presentation for a no-brainer proposal I've ever heard. I wanted to compliment you on that. No one, when you noticed everybody, nobody responded, huh?
No one.
Oh, amazing. Pastor, also, I wish you all the best. It's not our position to judge the marketing of the school. That's for you to decide. We only work on the zoning. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 2026-1978. Can I move the ordinance at the same time?
You can.
And move to approve ordinance number 2026-1937.
Second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0. Before I move on to reading the title of the next item, Jacob, I just want to let you know that I am going to be getting with you to give a tutorial to everybody else on how to appropriately use the clicker, because you seem to be one of the only people that can figure it out, and I really appreciate that. It brought me a lot of joy while you were speaking, I have to say. Okay, our next item is continued item, discussion and possible action regarding updates to Article 9, Section 6 of the Prescott City Charter, majority to elect in a primary for approval at a future election, review of recommendations from the Charter Review Committee regarding proposed charter revisions, and possible adoption of resolution number 2026-1977, providing notice of a special election to be held on November 3rd, 2026. And forgive me, I'm just going to navigate to the memo here because I did not go there before I read the title. So the item before you today is a couple of different possible actions to be taken by the council. So as you're all aware, there has been some discussion around the language in the charter as it relates to how the majority is calculated in a primary election. The city has been using the same process for quite some time, and up until this year's primary election, didn't really have any issues with it. But during the primary election, there were some calculation issues, not in actually calculating the majority, but in determining how the language is interpreted by the public. So the council had a number of discussions related to this and suggested 3 different options. Those options are all included in your pamphlet materials. The first suggestion was to have the language and the process be maintained with slight modifications to clarify how the count was actually done. So this would be maintaining our current process of calculating the majority based on valid ballots cast, but adding in language that would expressly iron out how that calculation is done. The second item, or the second option rather, was to revise the language to mirror the state statute, which gives a line-by-line calculation of how the majority is determined. I want to note that the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee is to move forward with this language and have that language be what is presented to the voters. And a third option that was brought up was to simply have the primary election serve as the only election, and the top vote getters would be duly elected in the primary, and there would be no majority calculation. So included in the packet materials are proposition language based on the recommendation from the Charter Review Committee, which is option 2. There's also included in your packet materials proposition language to have the first option also be included on a ballot with specific language after that I'll let Joe address. In order for the charter language to apply for the next council election, we would have to have the voters adopt it this year because our next council election would be in 2027. So that's why we would need to conduct an election in an off-cycled year. The Charter Review Committee also reviewed and had a lingering item that never got brought forward in 2023 when we did the 13 amendments at that time, which was to revise the language related to the city court and to remove the word justice of the peace. That is a simple fix for us, for staff, and it makes sense in the current structure of the city court, particularly because we've now separated from serving as a consolidated court under the county. So that language is also included as a proposition language for you to consider. And in order to conduct an election, I need you all to adopt a resolution, which is also included in your packet.
Yeah, just briefly on the alternative language. To be clear, the Charter Review Committee recommends option 2. That's the mirrors the state statute. But we do have kind of conflicting direction from the last time we spoke about this in council that maybe we want to have alternatives. And so the alternative language is directly from the state constitution, which says if there's 2 or more conflicting items on one ballot and they both pass, the one with more votes is the one that becomes in effect. And so based on your discussions today, you can, if you call it the election, you can choose option 1, 2, 3, or any combination thereof. But I've been asked some questions about this. It can create confusion, and in the event that we have kind of alternatives, we'll have to amp up our communications to make sure that's clear. But there's no recommendation from staff. You have your recommendation from the Charter Review Committee, and we'll do whatever you do based on your discussions.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment too that the Charter Review Committee is also working on other amendments, so these aren't just going to be the final 2 amendments. We may have some more amendments on the ballot, and I just would like to just set this up. I was a candidate last year for mayor, and in the primary, I obviously won. It was pretty simple. But we had the city council campaign, the candidates, we had 5 candidates for 3 seats, and nobody won under the way the charter was counted. The votes were counted. Actually, it says ballots in the charter. So there was some confusion. The voters weren't very happy because they went to the polls, they voted, and nobody won. The candidates, after campaigning from January to August, had to continue campaigning almost for a full year through November until the general election. And everyone was pretty fatigued. It was extra cost. And campaigning for a whole year for a council. And plus, we didn't know who our city council people were going to be until 2 weeks before they were sworn in. So with that in mind, we looked at some options. And to me, the simplest option, especially for the county elections department, is to align the way we count the votes with all the other electeds in the states, the Board of Supervisors and our state representatives. Just have everybody on the same page, and we won't have all the runoffs, and it'll be a lot more simpler, efficient, and it'll be just basically the top three majority wins. And I know that some people want to give the voters a choice, but I feel that this language that we currently have, where it talks about ballots instead of votes, and then we're going to change that to votes and remove for each office, because the mayor's office and the council candidates were all lumped in together, whereas in the charter it says clearly for each office. So it was very confusing. So I just support option 2. It's clean, put one option on the ballot. But if people want to put other options on and give people a choice, that's okay. But I feel that it might just muddy the waters and confuse people. So anyone else? Mr. Gambogi.
There's a couple other perspectives. When this came up before, I reminded everybody that years ago, 2 candidates by the name of Ken Bennett and Perry Haddon also didn't make the cut. Now, one other viewpoint on that is, if you didn't make the cut in the primary, that may be because you're not overwhelmingly accepted by the voters. My good friend and esteemed colleague, Ken Fiddick, once said, "Keep Prescott, Prescott." And this is an example of keeping Prescott, Prescott, because in the primary, you get to focus on the people here in Prescott, and you're not mixed in with the national election. And I think there's something to be said for that. This, like the proposal for parking, is another sour grapes proposal because it didn't go the way they wanted it. That's not a reason to change this.
Okay, Mr. Ruby, do you have a comment?
Yes. I think the key here is that we want to stop repeat elections. Elections need to have consequences. And the dilemma that we have with our current formula, which is based on ballots, is that it works for a 1-seat race. It does not work for a multi-seat race. It happened in 2017 where everybody had to run again. It happened in 2025. The state statute, which I like to call the Big Fan formula because it was passed unanimously at the state legislature, provides an efficient way of ensuring that there is a consequence to an election. And I like option 2 because if we go back to 1985, when Ken Bennett ran, and there were 10 people running, I applied this formula to that race. The top 6 would have moved on to the primary. And Ken would have still had his chance in the general and probably would have won. What it does is when there's a lot of candidates, it ensures that there will be a primary and not that somebody gets in with under a majority of the votes. Conversely, this formula is really effective because when there's only 5 candidates, like there was last time, the majority of the votes and the way they tabulate it is based on the number of offices or seats. And then you get a result. I went back and looked at every election from 2013 to 2025, and the Big Fan formula would not have impacted, it would not have changed the ultimate result. In 2013, Greg Lisdell and Ellie Laumark would have still gone to a runoff. 2015, I believe there were only 3 candidates that wouldn't have been used. 2017, the top 3 people would have made it in, and we wouldn't have had to have had a repeat election. In 2021, was it 21? It's right here, wait. 2019, there would have still been a runoff. No, Steve Sischka would have qualified, and there wouldn't have been a runoff between Sischka and Lamerson, and that would have saved the city money. Sischka beat Lamerson by, I think, like 3,000 votes. They had to do the runoff. That wouldn't have happened. In this past year in August, it would have not only saved the city money, it would have also saved the donors money, and it would have saved the voters time. So I would strongly and emphatically urge my colleagues to vote for option 2, become congruent with state statute, and spare us repeat elections in the future. People hate the signs, they hate you knocking on doors, but just to say, I went out and knocked doors continuing after the primary, and I got a lot of people. They didn't even all vote for me, but they signed this. They want us to stop repeat elections. So let's do it and vote for option 2.
Mary?
I'll just raise more fully something, Mayor, that you briefly touched on, which is if we get the decision in the primary, that allows the people who take the seats a couple of months to get up to speed, as the way it was in 2025. And as you mentioned, Mayor, the second the general election happened, the same 3 people that got the most votes in the primary got the most votes in the general, and so we went on to take our seats 2 weeks later, and that is a pretty abbreviated period of time to get up to speed. And so for the point of serving the community, it really would be a big plus in my book to allow for a couple of months of getting up to speed and not a mere 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's a big difference when you're just a candidate or you're like the mayor-elect or a council member-elect as far as getting information from the city, being included in some onboarding, and it gives us more time to prepare people. Whereas if you're just another candidate, you don't get the access to the city that you need for your onboarding. Lois?
I will say that I absolutely don't appreciate option 3. So that is not in my consideration set. I really did appreciate the work of the Charter Review Committee. I liked the clarity of Section B, and it really helped answer all the questions about how votes are calculated. I would love to see something like that similar for option 1 that gets to a level greater clarity of how the math is done, because I think that was the confusion for several candidates and several campaigns trying to figure out on election night, how do you do the math? So my concern with going forward with solely option 2 is if the voters were to say no, for some of the reasons that Ted articulated, we're left with the current charter language, which is not clear. So I like the option of offering both option 2 and option 1 with perhaps a little clearer wording for a new section B on option 1 and putting that forward. So regardless how the voters vote, we'll end up with a better charter on how we run elections than what we have today. So that's what I am supporting.
Let me ask our legal department, out of these 3 options, which is the ones that'll have the least probability of having a runoff?
Option 3 eliminates the runoff altogether. Option 2 has less runoffs, and option 1 will have the most runoffs.
And which stops repeat elections assuredly?
3.
And 2.
Not necessarily, because there's still a potential for a runoff with option 2.
But a runoff is different than a repeat election.
To the extent I understand what you're saying about repeat election, option 2 will have significantly less of that.
No, it's numerically impossible to have a repeat election with option 2. And with option 1, it is completely possible, as it's happened twice in the last 8 years, changing the language doesn't change the formula. And so just because we clarify the formula, it's still a formula that could leave us vulnerable to repeat elections.
Yes, that's accurate. Option 1 doesn't change the formula at all. It just clarifies, and we could do further clarification language as well, but it doesn't change the process.
Okay.
So I have a question here. If option 1 passes, the result is retaining the formula that we have. If option 1 doesn't pass, but it has more votes than the other options, what is the result?
If there was 2 options and neither of them passed, then we would maintain our current language. Neither of these 2 would go into effect.
So you're saying neither one of them will get if neither one of these options gets a majority vote?
Correct.
And then if we just put one option on the ballot, it's just a simple up or down?
It would be a majority vote, but it would be on one item.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Grady.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I support option 2, no other options. I think that that's the best way to proceed.
Okay, and Mr. Gehring?
I like option 2.
Okay, thank you. Lois has a question.
Yeah, Joe, mathematically, and I'm sorry I didn't try to figure this out, but the discussion here triggered it for me. If we had 3 candidates running for mayor, play out option 2 and option 1 for me on how that might affect when we have 3 candidates. Could someone be elected with 33.4% of the vote?
I think for mayor, the calculus doesn't change a whole lot because there's only one open seat. So it's the multiple open seats that brings in kind of the state statute and our statute or our charter provision.
So so my fear is actually played out with option 3, which we're not considering.
Correct.
Good, because that's what I don't want. I don't want a mayor who only has not even a majority of the voters supporting them. So thank you.
Mr. Gambogi, any thoughts?
Bring Jacob back.
Jacob for mayor.
The meeting would be done by now.
Okay, so I guess you're just kind of, we'll have to find out. All righty. I'd like to make a motion.
We have public comment, Mayor.
Oh, darn, public comment. All righty.
Terry Sapio.
It's getting kind of late.
Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Sapio, 38-year resident of Prescott. And I'd like to point out that the general election is not a runoff election. A general election is the election. The purpose, as we all know, of a primary election is to reduce the number of candidates. If it is a partisan election, then the political parties choose who their candidates are going to be from their group of candidates that want to be elected. In a nonpartisan election like we have here in Prescott, the primary is simply to reduce the number of candidates so that you have no more than 2 candidates per seat. Now, the way Prescott has always done it, you have a bonus in the primary election. And that bonus is if the voters in Prescott like a candidate so much that one of the candidates in the primaries or multiple candidates in the primary gets more than half of the voters who vote in the primary to vote for them, then they win the election. That's how option 1 works. What option 2 does is it gives voters who single shot a candidate an advantage. That means that their votes, a single shot voters vote carries more weight than voters who vote for 3 candidates because there are 3 seats available. And it's the voters that decide who's going to be elected. And therefore, it should be retained under option 1 that a majority of the voters who support a candidate so much that a majority of the voters that actually vote in the primary decide if somebody is going to get that bonus election in the primary, which is really designed to whittle down the number of candidates for the general election to no more than 2 candidates per seat. So for that reason, I think that we should keep the primary elections the way they are, which would mean option 1, because there is confusion how the math is done to calculate the majority of the voters. And so I support option number 1 just to clarify the language, but keep Prescott primary elections the way that they've always been, which would be option 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Ken Fiddick.
Good afternoon. It's getting later, but maybe we'll be done before 7 tonight. Ken Fiddick, resident of Prescott, Soaring Avenue. Yes, keep Prescott, Mr. Councilman, but that doesn't mean everything under the sun. So, with that in mind, keeping Prescott is saving some money, being efficient in how you run your elections. So I heartily support option 2. Be consistent with the statute, state statute, if that's what I heard correctly. I don't know the language exactly, but I would certainly hope that we would get more than 4 votes. So that means 5 or 6 for one of these options you're looking at. And by all means, do not put 2 different options on the ballot for the city to voters to decide. Give them one option other than keeping it as it is today. And thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's all, Mayor.
Okay, I need to ask for a clarification. Under recommended action, it says move to adopt resolution number 2026-1977. Now, that's calling for an election?
So the resolution calls for the election,
Okay.
and then I also need a vote from council on the ballot language. So that's going to be the options for the majority to elect in the primary, as well as the option that is included on there for the removal of justice of the peace from that whatever section that is.
Okay. Okay, I move to adopt resolution number 2026-1977, and I move to adopt option number 2, which is following state statutes, and also the amendment for justice of the peace, city judge.
Second.
Please vote.
Passes 5-2.
Thank you. Let's take a break here. It's 5 o'clock. get up, move around, use the bathroom, and let's come back in 15 minutes and we'll tackle the city workforce housing strategy and implementation plan.
Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the city's workforce housing strategy and implementation plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Amber Fraser. I am the Management Analyst for the City Manager's Office and Staff Liaison for the Workforce Housing Committee. So today we'll be presenting on the updated Workforce Housing Strategy and Implementation Plan. I do want to say thank you to Danny Court, who's here from Elliott Pollock & Company. They're our consultant and we're the ones who drafted this, so he'll be available for any technical questions. So today we're going to walk through the updates, highlight the changes, outline options to move into implementation, and ultimately we're here to follow Council's direction on next steps. So you've all heard this information before, so I'll just kind of go over it a little bit, but why this matters. Many Prescott households spend more than 30% of their income on housing, as you already heard this evening. And employers in healthcare, public safety, education, local government are reporting difficulty in hiring, retaining, recruiting due to housing in the area because current home prices in Prescott and nearby communities are more expensive than what many local households can afford. So workforce housing definition is 60% to 120% area median income. That includes workers who support our daily lives here in Prescott, such as police, fire, nurses, teachers, and other workers that influence our everyday life. So this slide gives a little context to challenges that are happening and connected to housing. Council received a turnover sheet, like fact sheet in your packets that go into some of our data from Human Resources. The average cost to replace an employee is about $60,000. Time to fill key positions is 180 days. There's vacancy costs. Fire and police can be higher because of their academies. And in 2025, about 35 job offers were declined due to housing factors. So about 7% of turnover was tied to housing. So why we're here tonight, a little bit of a project timeline. In 2024, the city was awarded an Arizona Department of Housing State Housing Trust Fund grant for $200,000. That was to complete a housing needs assessment and complete a housing implementation plan. So the needs assessment was completed with community input in 2025, and then in November of last year, Council approved the workforce housing policy framework. In January, our consultants came and they presented the draft strategy for implementation. And following that and guidance from Council, as well as one-on-one Council meeting with Council members, we took input and feedback and have updated the plan to reflect the guidance we've received. So there's been some updates to the plan. Some tools were moved out of the near phase, some strategies were deferred, timelines were adjusted, and the plan was revised to reflect Council's direction. So just because something was moved doesn't mean it's gone forever. It just means that it's not something that Council's interested in right now, but it's something that if in 10, 20 years Council wanted to revisit, it's not completely off the table. So we'll get into these in the next few slides, but this is just an overview of the focus areas and the high-level initiatives. So some of the focus areas were land development code updates to be more, oh, go ahead.
Lois, did you have a comment?
I did. I had a question. If I was in going through the packet, and I just noticed this, unfortunately, this morning as I was working my way through at lunchtime, there was between pages 12 and 13, and then you have all the photos, and then I get to page 18. I didn't understand how the top of page 18, 2.3 summary, flowed after the initiatives. So I was like, am I missing a paragraph or did something get pulled?
So I might have Danny come and speak to that. I don't believe this was part that was adjusted in the from the discussions from Council, but if Danny knows, I will let him speak to that.
Hi, Danny Court. The quick answer for you is I do not know because I'm not the primary author of the report. But what that section does is just summarize what the initiatives or goals could do in terms of lowering costs. So it takes within that table 5, you'll see different goals and initiatives or a summary of them and places them into a chart of how those initiatives could affect affordability, either in terms of land costs, soft costs, or hard costs. So I think it's just summarizing what the initial goals and strategies could do and how they affect.
No, I understood. I understood all the initiatives. I just figured out my own question. I had to go all the way back to page 5 to find 2.2, and then it was multiple pages of initiatives before you get to 2.3. So I'm sorry for that. I figured it out. Thank you.
Well, I hope that's the hardest question we have all night. No, I know, that's okay. No, I appreciate that. And anytime anyone wants a clarification, we're happy to stop and talk about that as we go through the initiatives. So,
Mr. Gambogi also has a comment.
Amber, as I read down through these focus areas, and I mentioned this when the consultant presented at the last council meeting, that this looks like a one-trick pony. I mean, everything here looks like a plan to build new housing. And at today's cost of $300 a square foot, the only way you can make it somewhat affordable is you make it so small that people sleep standing up. I've been proposing a more robust approach, one of which is take current housing, infill, and fix it up. We've got 2 examples right here in Prescott where instead of $300 a square foot, they did it for $160 a square foot. Some of our issues are not so much affordable housing, but salary. We just lost 4 police officers, and they didn't move from their current residence. So that says to me, well, we ought to look at salary. We ought to look at old homes. There's a number of things we need to look at other than brand new structure, and this looks like all brand new structure to me.
Yeah, let me add on that. This study had a lot of good statistics and information and data, but like Ted said, it's kind of a one-trick pony. So far, this policy only presents one option, and that's just any run-of-the-mill developer, builder can get a certification, and then one of the proposals was a 100-unit apartment complex with 10 units dedicated to low-income, affordable housing. It's not even guaranteed to be workforce, with an ask from the city of $1 million for those 10 units for waiving permit fees and subsidizing impact fees. And, you know, I think that the Workforce Housing Committee needs to look at other options, such as other turnkey partners, similar to Wuda Cooper that we've been negotiating with, and also become more employer-driven, you know, work with employers like the hospital here in town that might be able to build their own housing for their employees, and then we could work with them on maybe waiving some fees. And then another concern I had with this was on page 11. It sounds like the city is going to have to hire like practically its own housing authority, multiple people to run all these projects. And I'm sorry, that is not our, you know, that is not our job to do that. I mean, it would just be, we'd have to, it'd cost us millions of dollars in, you know, hiring people to run these projects for developers. And the developers would just keep collecting their rents, and then how are we going to pay all these new employees to implement these programs? So I'm just saying I'm glad we explored this option, but I think we still have a lot of work to do to look at other options other than this, but continue. Oh, Mr. Grady, did you have a comment?
Yeah, a couple. First, this isn't oriented only to the development community. We have language at different points in the paper itself about working closely with nonprofits. And nonprofits can bring new resources to the community and use those resources to actually drive down the cost to the selected household, kind of like what Prescott Habitat for Humanity does. They raise most of that money to offset the cost of the stick-built houses that they may do. The second thing I was going to say was that I think with the infill and neighborhood revitalization approach, which would be more in, what is that? I'm looking at it right here, number 5. I think that the infill incentive district could lead to some neighborhood revitalization and to more potential renovation projects. I want to say one more thing, and that is I don't think we need to study this anymore. The committee's been at this for over 2 years. And I don't know, maybe it's approaching 3. But I think we have a number of options that are proven models that have been reasonably successful. I'm not sure how extensive the scale of impact is, but when you look at some of our competitor cities that we're concerned about because they may be taking some of our employees, they have employee and employer assisted housing programs, whether it be Cottonwood or Sedona or Flagstaff. I heard Camp Verde's looking at that as well. So I think we have to do something in order to remain competitive. We've heard the numbers from the HR office. We've heard from the city manager on occasion about our business retention needs. And I think that what the committee has done to date, along with the consultant, is we've pared down the unacceptable incentive pieces like water policy incentives or impact fees, but we've left some other opportunities open.
Well, what do you think about hiring a basic in-house? It'd be like a whole different section of managing this. You know, how many employees? It'd be like our own internal housing authority, and I just don't think we have the resources or the will to do that. I don't think that's our job.
Can I continue and respond to that? Okay. I think that that's an appropriate point. We're not proposing to create a housing authority. This paper doesn't mention that language. I think we're looking at potentially a couple of different options, and I hope this also includes our city staff, but speaking more to the work of the committee itself, they've been supportive of looking at nonprofits. And I'll just use this as an example. I'm not saying this is what we should do, but like there's a group called Northern Arizona Housing Solutions that provides those services to a number of communities like Sedona, like Flagstaff, and there's still going to be a cost to that, but there's ways of drawing in charitable foundation dollars to make that happen. I think the second option that is a part of the implementation plan is to then look at, do we need a staff person? So there's a couple of models out there. How do you fund that staff person if it were a city? How does it get funded if you were to contract with a nonprofit? So that's additional work that we anticipate in the implementation plan section.
Yeah, it says right here under strategy 9.1, the first bullet point, the staffing resources required to continue the workforce housing program management are significant. Okay? It says right there, they're significant. And I'm just saying if there's any way to be more efficient and still partner with people that, like you said, the nonprofits, I just don't think we should be the ones responsible for administering all these programs.
And I think that's the feedback that the Workforce Housing Committee is looking to have. And I think it may be a both and kind of situation, but I don't think we're looking or anticipating that we're going to be creating a whole department around this.
Yeah, because I'm not ready to codify this. We have Mr. Gambogi.
Lord knows we need workforce housing. But the way this is written, it says, let's go get some workforce housing. And I'd like to see a mission and vision statement. Like I've always said, I believe that anybody that works for the city of Prescott should be able to afford to live in the city of Prescott. And I've said there's connections there. For example, if you live in the city of Prescott, you don't live in Paulden, you don't drive down 89, which is now not going to be widened and shut down for 5 months. And you don't live in DeWitt. No, Dewey. DeWitt's in Michigan. Dewey, and you don't drive on 69. There's some linkages there that bring some synergy. Now, with all due respect to my esteemed colleague, Councilman Grady, I wouldn't benchmark against Cottonwood, Flagstaff, and Sedona. I think we need to slow this down because we need to do it right, and it needs to consider all the needs in the city. I also don't see, I personally think this ought to be focused, before you try to boil the ocean, you focus it on what the most important needs are. To me, the needs are police, fire, teachers, and healthcare. So we ought to have a program that's far more robust, that focuses on the vital few people that we really need in this community. Remember, in the southeast quadrant of the 2023 resident survey, there's 2 entries. One is the economy, one is healthcare. Those 4 occupations apply to economy. So I tend to say we ought to slow this down. We ought to have a mission and vision statement, and we ought to explore all the possibilities: salary, bank financing, new build, old build, so that we can't get Habitat for Humanity to build more than one house at a time. You can't build enough houses in the period of time we need it to address even the 4 that I mentioned.
And also, I think we should, as a city, focus on ourselves first. And there's things that we can do to help our new employees. I'd like to hear some comments from the city manager about this.
Absolutely. Did you have a specific question you wanted me to address?
Well, about being employer-focused rather than just focused on people that want to develop these projects that really aren't, specific, they have no training or know nothing about all the tax credits and the federal programs. They just want to do it and then have us subsidize it and have our own housing authority.
Yeah, that's certainly a way.
That's not true. No, I just told you a moment ago that no one is proposing a housing authority.
Well, it looks like a housing authority, but just without a name. Oh.
So I think the question about where to focus, like the scope, right? Is the scope the community at large? Is the scope particular occupations, which is really hard to do because you can't discriminate that way or select people for residency that way. Is the appropriate scope trying to accomplish or accommodate city staff first and our own recruiting challenges? I think that's the appropriate question for the scope. I think housing generally as a topic usually is within the human services function of a county. It's not something that small cities usually take up. Usually larger cities have a human services function. We don't have a human services function, so we're maybe trying to fill a little bit of a void here. And then maybe a third thought just for your consideration is, when we look at the development happening in Prescott, we do see that happening, right? We do see additional supply coming online. We just talked about another apartment complex earlier today. We know there are a few others going up around town. We know there's additional single-family homes that are approved for development. So one of the questions for us might be, do we have a housing supply problem, or do we have a wage problem and an affordability problem? And the answer depends on the question you ask, right? So if it's more of a wage or affordability problem, then we might have more programmatic responses versus development responses. If it's a supply thing and we're hoping to bring down housing prices overall as the way of dealing with affordability, then you would focus on more development-oriented, adding supply in order to reduce all housing prices. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gambogi, then we'll move on.
A couple of things I forgot to mention. With regard is it a demand or a supply, we have a shortage of supply, but the market is segmented. We have a shortage of supply of houses that there are places like Ken Maverick lives, but we're talking about police, fire, teachers. And I used the example when Caterpillar gave me my first field assignment in Albuquerque, I bought a house for 3 times my salary. Now, among those 4 occupations I mentioned, that is anywhere from 7 to 10 times their salary today. So I wanted to mention that I think it is a salary issue among people that are in entry-level jobs. Secondly, I think we need to make this, I keep saying this looks like a proposal, so let's go get ourselves some of this affordable housing stuff. I think we ought to engage some of the leaders in the community. Clark Tenney is school. Anthony Torres is healthcare. We ought to get more visionary people to weigh in on this, because there may be new and entrepreneurial answers that we're not thinking of, other than let's go get ourselves some workforce housing. So I think the more we engage people, the more we make this a community analysis, the more we slow this down and look at all the options, the better off we'll be.
Mr. Gehring, did you have a comment?
Thank you. I have several. Where to start? Okay. State Housing Trust Grant Fund dollars. How much is left of the $200,000, and when does it expire?
So that's a slide later, and I was debating where to put that in this. We have $75,000 left. Sorry?
Did you get to that slide now?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's a very exciting slide, but okay. So we have $75,000 left that must be used for implementation, needs to be used before July of 2026, and can't be used until a plan is approved. So to unlock that $75,000 to pay the consultant. So a lot of the strategies that are in here, our current consultant would be able to do under this umbrella. So we wouldn't have to pay for a new person for a lot of this. But that's what I have on the grant funding. If anybody has additional questions, Michael, my other staff liaison, has been a lot more involved in talking to Arizona Department of Housing regarding the grant fund, so he could answer some more technical questions.
What else? Mr.
Well, I'm
Gehring?
still going here.
Yeah.
Just getting started, I guess. So I kind of like Councilmember Gambogi's thoughts on cost-benefit analysis. And I'd like to apply that kind of logic to this program. So what I'm wondering is, if you take this handout that we got that talks about the cost of turnover, what it's missing is the amount of turnover in numbers of people in each category that happened in Prescott, as an example, over a year. How much does that cost us? If we had that over a long period of time, we would have a better idea of where we could save considerable public dollars by reducing that turnover. And then, of course, a huge question is what is causing the turnover? And some people think it's housing shortage, but we learned the other day, or at least Councilmember Jay and I learned that we lost 2 police officers.
4.
But that we learned 2. Now Ted knows about 2 more apparently, to the tribes, and the reason was that they paid on the order of $20,000 a year more than we do. So if we had the numbers of turnover and the cost of that turnover in each department, and we could then take that turnover and estimate how much of that we could eliminate or reduce, then we could have some idea how much we could spend on this program. But it looks to me like we're completely in the dark on how much this whole program is going to cost. And so without more guidance on how much it's going to cost, I'm not very happy with it.
So I can definitely have our HR director speak to turnover in general and trends and all of that. On that form that we created, we tried to provide the formula that HR uses so that you could apply it to any position. And then based off of last year's numbers, there was about a 7% turnover due to housing. So
How many trash truck drivers do we lose a year?
I will have to defer
You
that.
see, it's more than just one position. It's a whole bunch of positions in the city. So, I mean, I don't expect an answer on that because I don't think we have an answer on that. But I think the question should be asked and answered at some point if we're going to go forward.
If I could just note right there, there's a little bit, 7% of the turnover is housing related, right? The bigger issue with housing is employees who don't come to begin with because the housing is too expensive. And so they'd be great employees, they want to come, they do well in the interviews, and they start looking for housing and they go, oh, I can't actually make that work. I'm sorry.
So if we knew that number and how much it costs, we could maybe see how much we could subsidize housing, for instance, and come out even. And then I'm wondering, I didn't see anything about short-term rental properties in and around Prescott in the initiatives. And it does seem to me, and I've gotten an email or two from people saying, hey, all these short-term rentals are eliminating workforce housing. So I think that needs to be looked into. Do we need to enact some sort of control over over short-term rentals, for instance, to free up that workforce housing?
I can address short-term rentals. That's really an area that the state has said, cities, you have no control. And so we have a little bit of ability to license them and require their licensure, but we cannot prevent the use of buildings in that way.
I'll just add to that, there's about 800 short-term rentals in the city. And most of those, if they were not, they're seasonal homes, they're second homes, they're otherwise vacant homes. If they were not short-term rentals, they would be vacant. Because there's a family that wants to, that owns it, and they want to come up a few weeks a year or a few months a year, and then they do short-term rental the rest of the time. So it's not, there's very little long-term workforce housing that becomes available if short-term rentals are not allowed.
Does that mean that the minute we approve changing granny units to short-term rentals, we're suddenly at the mercy of the state?
They already are. Yeah, so we are at the mercy of the state. The debate that we had previously was whether to allow granny rentals to be used for long-term rentals, which was the discussion we had, because they were already allowed by law to be used as short-term rentals.
And-
To follow up over my last one, I think Patrick's point was that we shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel here. These programs are in force and doing things elsewhere, and we need to look at those examples, how much they cost and how effective they are.
Mr. Ruby, did you have a comment?
Yes. What percentage of your presentation are you through right now?
Well, we skipped a lot ahead, so I think we're towards the end.
I guess my comment is more, some of the things that were addressed are in this proposal. Like there isn't an infill program, there's a community land trust, and I think it would be good for us to digest the information that Amber is presenting. Clarifying questions I think are good, but before we start to really debate the merits of a housing policy, to really take in the whole presentation first.
Okay, proceed.
So I'll back up a little bit. Go back to the beginning. And the committee agrees. The committee agrees that this cannot be a one-trick pony. This has to be a multi-pronged approach that addresses a lot of things from, they talk about incentive programs for developers, but there's also programs for employees. There is city-owned land, there's community land trusts. So we'll get through all of that, but the committee wholeheartedly agrees that this is absolutely not going to be solved by one solution. So I'll go through these a little quick, but anytime anybody wants to stop, let me know. So Land Development Code, our Community Development Department is already looking to update the Land Development Code. So this partners nicely with that. And that would, of course, come to council for approval in the future. For incentive programs, the feedback we received from the council members we were able to meet with was that there wasn't a huge interest in pursuing this as the main focus. So a lot of aspects of it, such as impact fees in lieu of alternatives, those could be wrapped into development agreements that council negotiates. So they're not standalone tools that staff is going to put in a lot of time and effort to pursue, but it is something that council absolutely has the abilities to use as tools in negotiations on development agreements. We had talked in the policy framework about implementing non-impact fee waivers. That was where we had that chart of percentage for percentage. So if only 10% of a project was going to be workforce housing, they would only get 10% of non-impact fees waived. And part of the workforce housing certification, which we'll get to, is having them sign that they are agreeing to keeping that within the AMI affordability for 30 years. And so an agreement on that note. But a lot of the incentive programs are now wrapped into council's toolbox for development agreement negotiations. So initiative 3 is that workforce housing proposal documentation that was mentioned in the policy framework. So creating a standardized review framework so every developer is treated the same, and having a workforce housing certification form that will follow their project all the way through, showing exactly what they've agreed to provide in workforce housing and what percentage of non-impact fees would be put into that. In initiative 4 is establishing a community land trust. There are some options for the city to create its own. That does have a lot more work that has to go into that, or doing an RFP to contract with one that's already out there. So those are options. And then creating an infill incentive district to expand workforce housing and really focus on infill instead of just new builds. So initiative 6 is workforce housing funding. So exploring funding tools, housing resources for city employees is on here as well. And examples of that would be exploring and implementing down payment assistance and like financial education resources for employees. And down payment assistance is one of those programs that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are many different options. There are banks that already do it and they contract with municipalities to implement it. So there's a lot of different areas we can create those programs for employees. Initiative 8 is inventory of city-owned land. When the committee started, we actually did do an inventory of city-owned properties. There's very few that would qualify for workforce housing or housing in general. A lot of it is for infrastructure, but there are a couple of parcels that might be usable for workforce housing projects or land trade, things like that. So that's something that if council would like to have staff continue looking into that, we could do that as well. So provide resources for implementation, identify staffing resources. Anything that council approves is going to take some level of implementation management, but it doesn't have to be a full person. It could be a consultant, it could be a contractor, or it could be like the Northern Housing Solutions of Arizona Housing Solutions. I always mess theirs up, but they're fantastic. And there's organizations like that where they actually run and manage all of the programs. They just contract with the municipalities. So there's flexibility on that as well, on how council would like those programs ran and by who. Develop workforce education guidebooks, a guidebook for our workforce to know what resources are out there and where to find them, and then public outreach campaign. A lot of these, again, if this were to be approved or if parts of it were to be approved, a lot of this could be done by our consultant using the remaining grant funds. Initiative 10 is expanding tools for implementation. Let me get to the right note slide. So there's additional tools like GIPLETs, which is the government property excise lease tax. There's construction sales tax. This area also talks about working further with school districts, churches, and really getting out in the community and seeing what partners we have and where we can partner. And then doing a comprehensive review of the land development code, which I know that community development's already working on. And then the missing middle housing types is just ensuring the land development code supports those and council support. So some items that were removed or deferred, again, that doesn't take them completely off the table. That just means they're not right now things or not in this scope right now. Impact fees were not something that we got a lot of interest in right now, but still available to council as a development agreement tool. In lieu of fee options were similar, maybe a good tool for development agreements, but not its own standalone item anymore. The financial modeling, it's still relevant. We could still hand it out as a separate handout. We just took it out to make the document a bit more efficient. And then water policy, right now it's just not fully feasible to do incentives based off the water policy. We talked to our water team on that. We've talked to council on that. And that's just not something that's feasible to pursue right now, but it could be in the future. So then that gets us to the grant funding. To unlock that $75,000, something needs to be approved for implementation. So we can't take it and put it in a fund and use it for projects. We have to actually spend it on implementation. Where staff is we want council to have a plan that you are comfortable with and support. So we can edit, remove as much or as little as you'd like. We have tried to build this with the input that we receive from council. But we can absolutely edit it as we go. And then another thing we're asking for tonight, which was kind of touched on, is the Workforce Housing Committee. With the implementation plan, if it were to be approved, a lot of that is going to be handled by staff and consultants. So where is the committee going next? Where do you as council see their ongoing work going? So that's where we're at right now. Happy to answer any questions. I think this is my last official slide, but we can make any edits. Council also doesn't have to approve anything if you don't want to, if you're not comfortable. And we would love direction on where you see the Workforce Housing Committee focusing their efforts next.
Let's see, do we have any new comments? I still see Mr. Gehring up and Mr. Gambogi. Is that left over? Let's see, we've got
I have a new comment.
Jay Ruby. Okay.
So my understanding, Amber, is that this plan is here to be like, if we approve this plan, we can get $75,000 from a grant, and that's why we're here today. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so you're asking us for guidance. Are you asking us to pick focus areas from all of that to look at the whole plan? Like, I think it's great to get $75,000. I think housing touches on a lot of deeper issues, and that was some of the conversations that started. But it seems to me like the deadline to get the $75,000 is soon. Is there anything in this plan that is binding that gets us committed or stuck? Or is this something that we could just simply say yes to get the $75,000 and begin further conversations on housing?
So the approval ultimately unlocks the funding and lets staff and consultants begin working on certain things that we can work on, like the workforce housing guidebooks and the certification. A lot of it is phrased as consider or research. So there is a lot that will need further discussion and further council guidance. But there are some actionable things. The land development code is already going to be something that community development's working on. So this would give some extra resources to that to focus on the housing part of that. So we work at the direction of council. So whatever direction you'd like us to go, if you want to approve something small, like focus on City of Prescott programs for employees, we could make it as simple as that.
I think that's a great idea. We could use the $75,000 to explore maybe a stipend or loans or something. I know major corporations and businesses do that with their employees. And I think that would be to continue with the study, but look at other options such as employer-focused options, and then also look at more of the turnkey options. You know, there's national companies that this is all they do, and it would take a lot of burden off of the City of Prescott taxpayers without having to hire all this additional staff to manage these programs when we have other pressing needs.
So Initiative 7 is explore housing resources for city employees. And again, we work at your direction. If council wanted to move it down to just Initiative 7, we could do that. Just throwing that out there. We still would ask for direction on where the committee would go next, especially if it were to be pared down to just that. And I might look to Michael to see if he can speak, if there's anything on the grant that might prohibit it from being that limited. But I don't believe there would be. But we would also want to know where that would take the committee at that point.
Michael McGinnis, Community Development Grant Administrator. So this is an Arizona Department of Housing grant, so it can't be limited or specific. It's for the community, specifically, pretty general in its reach, especially around affordability. So we couldn't pinpoint just the City of Prescott employees with this grant money, if that was the question.
Could we pinpoint exploring the turnkey options? Because that would be more kind of for general, apply to pretty much all employees.
Right, Mayor. I would say that could potentially be something we could go back to the consultant to do a further review. They're still under contract through June. So that would be my suggestion right now off the cuff, but something we could further look at as staff.
Yeah. And another thing I had a problem with was, it talks about workforce, but it seemed like it also talked about vouchers, housing vouchers, which to me would be the Section 8 employees, senior housing, So that's kind of would be rolled into these programs here.
Right. So Section 8 vouchers, I'd have to start with City of Prescott doesn't have a housing authority. With it, the county, Yavapai County doesn't have a housing authority. And without a housing authority, you're pretty limited on Section 8 vouchers and what we can do with those. So I would say that that's kind of a non-starter with this, if mentioned at all. So
Can I make a note? If you do see vouchers in there, let me know where. We have worked with the consultant to have this focused on workforce only. And that's been a focus of the committee as well, is to not talk about low income, not talk about affordable, and not talk about Section 8, but to talk about workforce only. So if that is in there, please let me know where, because we have been focusing on workforce only.
Okay, thank you. Lois?
So when I had my one-on-one interview with the team, I tried to be really choiceful of what I was interested in, because I'm really tired of talking and I really want to try something. This is how of the initiatives. My number one was Initiative 7. Okay? That's the explore housing resources and options for city employees. That's totally within our circle of control. If we could get those 35 employees every year to say yes, so for me, that's like low-hanging fruit. Let's work on that. Then I would go back to initiative number 1. We've got to amend the Land Development Code to get the framework operational so that all the other employers and all the other options in town, there's a process by which our staff can get it done. And we could probably use the consultant to help with getting a boatload of that done. I didn't see Initiative 2 as a high priority for me, with the focus of bringing it back to council to use in negotiations with development agreements. So if I had to use a consultant's time, that wasn't as high for me. The same thing for me was Initiative 3, preparing the housing workforce proposal documentation, the certification form, the standard review form. What was interesting for me is, here we just heard from the water thing we had earlier today, call that affordable housing or call that workforce housing. I just know that would have given an apartment to my son, who's struggling right now down in Greenville, South Carolina. But they were talking 30 to 80% of AMI, and this says 60 to 120. So I don't know if I would like to have a workforce housing certification program that we could use with people that literally just showed up and dropped a gift in our lap. So whether it's 60 to 120 or it's in the ballpark of workforce, I'm like, let's get this done so we can have a standard review framework and value it. I really liked the way you previously had Initiative 4 worded, which was prepare for single family ownership housing. And the tools, one of them was community land trust, and the other one was, be open to any nonprofit or other organizations. I would even, the housing program Ted was talking about earlier, and I forget their name, the one that builds one a year, Habitat for Humanity. There's
Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you. I'm tired. I want to go home. So let's get going. So I'm open to the community land trust. I'm open to other relationships. But I think when you get people out of apartments into single family ownership, there's a level of commitment, a level of retention, and a level of safety in the community with home ownership. I like infill for the exact same reason. It brings good workers into districts and helps turn things around. I agree with you. The city surplus land, I'm like, you've already told me there's not a lot of options there, so I'm like, why prioritize it? I'm really not interested in Initiative 9. I am not interested in adding lots of city employees to all of this. So that's my concern of using the $75,000 to make things much more turnkey to evaluate and not set up a housing authority or anything else. I have the same concerns. So for me, it's kind of like, could we please align to 2 to 5 of these initiatives and say go, and let's use this $75,000 and try and get something off the ground in 2026, 2027 fiscal year? That's where my head is.
Okay, Mr. Grady.
I think that's a good start. I really think we have to be respectful of the work that this committee and staff have done. I heard a comment from my distinguished fellow council person down to my left that, well, we need to partner and get ideas from others in the community. Well, staff and maybe some of us here have attended the seminars and summit meetings that YCCA has put together. So to say that the consultant and staff and others have not need to do more research on best practices is strange, because that's just simply not the case. So I'm going to go down Lois's path. So I like the initiative 1. I like initiative 3. I like, mine may be a longer list. I like, and we've talked about the health community. We've talked about the teaching, the teacher community, et cetera. Yeah, I think if we started with something like that, I'm going to give just a brief story. I know it's getting late, but when I worked for the city of Columbus, and I realize this was decades ago, when I worked for the city of Columbus, they had a $2 million housing program, and they didn't know how to spend it. And we just got to work. 2 or 3 years after successfully spending $2 million of HUD money, I might add, to help families stay in a gentrifying neighborhood. I moved into economic development. And so we created an office, had 2 of us, maybe 3. We didn't have any programs, but to somebody's point earlier, you have to start somewhere. You have to get your feet wet, and it may not work. Ours did. We started a program to do improvements to commercial buildings in some commercial districts. We ended up doing loans to developers in commercial districts, and we ended up, I think our last piece was a working capital loan program. But again, it's about getting started. So if we can come to some concrete closure on what those priorities should be, and narrow that down as Lois is trying to do, I think we'll be successful. And you'll be surprised. I mean, there are some foundations that I've actually talked to, and I'm not going to reveal who they are. They're interested in coming to our community. There'll be more. These programs that maybe Agape works with, or that Homes for Good wants to work with, they layer all sorts of funding sources on top of one another to make it affordable. People are doing this. Nonprofits are doing this. As you pointed out, Kathy, developers are doing it too. They're making a business out, whether it be Woda Cooper or Gorman or some of the other ones you've mentioned. We just got to figure out what that target is and hone in on it.
Point of order, we're not talking about affordable housing. We're talking about workforce housing.
And what did I say? I don't think I used
Groups like Agape are not going to build workforce housing. They're going to build affordable housing.
That's correct. That's just an example of another model where nonprofits, whether it be workforce housing or affordable, can actually layer funding from different resources that a city doesn't have access to.
Madam Mayor, could we have a motion?
Oh, just a minute. I think we still have a few people that want to comment. Jay?
4, 5, 6, 7, those are my priorities. But I don't think we need to actually choose priorities. I think this is about approving a plan so we can get this grant money. It almost feels like this is a study session rather than a voting session topic. I'm happy to see a motion passed. I make a motion to pass this. 3 hours and 23 minutes in. It's not as bad as 2 weeks ago. I am sorry, folks. Would someone with better language skills offer to pass this motion?
Not this.
Second.
Just a comment that we're actually...
Point of order, we got a motion and a second on the floor.
The motion wasn't clear. So the motion would be to approve the workforce housing strategy and implementation plan dated March 10th, 2026.
I'm seconding again if we need it.
Passes 4-3.
Okay, thank you all.
Wait,
That's okay. I will wait.
so we passed it. So we have go after the $75,000, but come back to Jay and Pat and I think we do need to have another discussion because sending you off to chase all these initiatives is not strategic enough, and we'll be sitting here a year from now wondering why we didn't accomplish anything. So I would like to have this back on the agenda if someone else will second that motion. 'Cause I think we have to narrow this bad boy down.
We don't need a motion for it. We have direction, so we can do that. And two of you just gave direction, so there you go.
Okay.
We're getting better. It's only 6:30. 2 hours shorter than the
That's
8:30.
the second shortest one of our 6 sessions, so we're doing well.
Mary, you have to adjourn the meeting.
This meeting is adjourned.